Chapter 46-33. Who do you think you are? Vainly thinking that you can withstand the attack of tens of thousands of poisoned mutated harpies by yourself. Mao Yang didn't expect that the other party would display extraordinary strength right after he taunted her. Mao Yang's old face was completely contorted, and he widened his dog eyes in disbelief at the situation in the sky. That little girl swung her sword. It was merely a single strike. Under the dazzling radiance, the sword's shadows transformed into tens of thousands of mimicry humans and swept toward the harpies in front of them. An unstoppable force rushed into the group of eagle-bodied cultivators. Mao Yang and the others only saw a dazzling radiance in front of them. A massive light barrier descended from the sky and enveloped the entire harpies inside. A deafening sound exploded in the midst of the eagle-body crowd like a thunderclap. They clearly saw that the group of fleeing harpies inside the light barrier were instantly ground into fine powder the moment they came into contact with the tens of thousands of rays of light, and the powder drifted down. Everyone was stunned. The little stoic blinked her eyes and dazedly looked up at her Uncle Master for a long time, unable to utter a single word. That's right, in my impression, my Uncle Master is indeed such an unscrupulous and dashing person. Starting a fight at the slightest disagreement. This simply fits the image of the Uncle Master deep in my memory. That's right, these harpies were all insta-killed by my Uncle Master in a single move. Haha, I'm not blind. My eyesight is failing me. Redcoat finally found his voice after a while and asked meekly, did the little girl annihilate tens of thousands of harpies in a single move just now? Your eyesight isn't failing me. Fan Meng shook her head and said, that is indeed the truth. This kind of terrifying power already didn't belong to the category of human power, right? How could there be such an expert in this world? Peak stage divine venerable realm. Could it be the holy venerable realm? I don't know. Fan Meng shook her head again and looked in the little stoic's direction. In the end, she saw that the little fellow was also in a daze, looking like she was at a loss for words. After this ultimate strike, several hundred transparent chains appeared in the air and shot toward little Defice limbs, tightly binding them. Chi Nidian, are you a fraud? I told you not to beat them to death. Don't kill them. Ah. A trembling voice that was close to hysteria directly entered Defy the Heavens mind through the soul voice. Strangely, Lady Qiao Qiao was actually able to hear the voice. The little fellow could not help but frown. She was already very familiar with this voice. It was the Heavenly Tao. The Heavenly Tao had come to capture Lord Jojo's martial uncle again. Couldn't it just stop for a bit? Jojo-sama had only reunited with his martial uncle for a few seconds. Why was he rushing over to catch people? Heavenly Tao, I'm warning you. Let me go. Aren't you annoying? If I hadn't killed them earlier, we would be the ones dead now. Little Defying the Heavens swung the transparent chain around his wrist and sent a soul message to the Heavenly Tao. He wanted to let this old man know how angry he was right now. How can you do that? How can you insta-kill him? Ah! How could you use a top-notch killing move to torture these small shrimps? Ah! You're cheating. Hurry and scram back. Don't cause trouble here. Heavenly Tao's internal OS was probably on the verge of collapse right now. Chapter 46-34. When did I cheat? Get your facts straight, I didn't arbitrarily tear open space to come here. I was summoned here. Do you understand summoning? I didn't break the rules, I'm not going back. Child, according to this summoning talisman of yours, how long can Ant Master stay here? Forever, the little stoic said expressionlessly. Pooh, scram. A lean little old man with white hair, white beard, and white eyebrows popped out of the void, and he stomped on the clouds. You are the heavenly Tao. This image did not match the grand and lofty heavenly Tao that she had in mind at all. What's with your brat's expression? Heavenly Law hopped around. It's an expression of disdain. Nidian rolled his eyes. Look at your rotten old man's image. Who would take a liking to you? What did you say? The little old man paced back and forth in the air, huffing and puffing as he roared, What do you know? I am heavenly law, and heavenly law is formless. Any form can be called heavenly law. I can turn into a drop of water, a gust of wind, a blade of grass, a cloud in the air. Now that I've turned into a human, in order to match this old man's age, I aged a little. Who am I hindering? Shut up. Little Aunt Master and Marshal Nephew roared at the old man at the same time. You talk too much. Too long-winded. The little stoic and Chi Nidian reprimanded one after another, and then they looked at each other from a distance. The little old man was infuriated, and he glared at the two of them and roared, So what if this old man talks a little too much? Everyone, they were dreaming, right? Just now, they saw with their own eyes someone annihilate all the harpies with a single strike. Now, they saw a little old man who resembled heavenly law, hopping and flipping in the clouds, and even chattering and cursing at someone. It was a fantasy. There must be something wrong with their eyesight. Heavenly law, let me ask you. Why didn't you strike me last time when I was 5 spirits reincarnation? This question had been suppressed in the little stoic's heart for a very, very long time. She had to ask. Ask clearly. Why didn't this guy strike her, and, since you didn't do it the last time, does that mean you won't do it in the future? The little stoic asked several questions expressionlessly. The questions she asked made everyone present extremely speechless. I'm telling you, don't screw me over. Last time, I drew so many talismans, set up so many talisman arrays, and put on hundreds of layers of defensive barriers. You won't strike me. If you find another chance to strike me again, I will definitely not let you off. Fan Meng glanced at the little stoic and muttered in her heart, I saw Heavenly Law's lips twitch just now. He's seriously too anthropomorphic. Look at your good disciple. Heavens will roar at against the sky angrily, my balls hurt when I see you. Hurry up and scram, scram scram scram. Chi Nidian, you can only stay here for 24 hours. Once the 24 hours are up, you'd better return to your position and get the hell out of here. Don't mess around here. Also, do not meddle in the affairs of this place. Don't randomly use skills. Don't, in short, once the 24 hours are up, you'd better get the hell out of here. More than 2 hours have already passed, so you're on your own now. Wait, come back here. I already said that I was summoned here, so it's in accordance with Heavenly Law's rules. Rules my ass. Your existence is the greatest violation of rules. Get the hell out of here. Heavenly Law's aura disappeared into the clouds with a huff. Chapter 46-35. Arbor blinked strangely and looked at little Aunt Master, who floated to the ground and walked up to her. Isn't the old man a bit strange? He keeps telling Aunt Master to scram, but he's the first one to scram and scram. Against the heavens, Fan Mang and the others, against the heavens couldn't resist chuckling. He originally wanted to pounce forward and hug his little Aunt Master, but he discovered that his arms and legs were short, so he could only pounce onto the little fellow's legs. Against the heavens was quite gloomy. With a raise of his hand, a gigantic 4-winged thunder dragon landed in front of the little stoic with a puff. Against the heavens abruptly discovered that his Xiao Bao's eyes had clearly brightened. This oddball stoic really wasn't any different from usual. Little Against the heavens' eyes curved into crescents with a grin, and he glanced amiably at Arbor and said, Xiao Bao, it wasn't easy for Aunt Master to come here. It's time to leave. Even if she didn't leave, Heavenly Law wouldn't let her off. Let's not care about this mess. Let's go chat with Aunt Master. Arbor nodded her small head. Against the heavens noticed that all the pretty boys around them were looking at her strangely. Little Against the Heavens climbed onto Arbor and poked the little stoic's cheek, asking quietly, "They're your friends?" "No." Arbor shook her small head and turned to glance at Fan Mei and the others with a complicated gaze. After thinking about it, she still said, "Are you guys going to stop me?" On the side, Louie hastily shook her head and said, "Of course we won't stop you. Little Stoic, we actually don't have any ill intentions towards you. If you had any ill intentions, you would all be beheaded by now." The little Stoic thought to herself and harumphed. She turned around and walked 2 steps before suddenly turning back and shouting, "Where's that old man?" "Fuck," Heavenly Law interrupted her midway, and she even forgot about Mao Yang, that damn old man. Now, that old man had actually disappeared. Most likely, he was afraid of Sir Jojo's Aunt Master and took advantage of the chaos to slip away. What a shameless old man. He actually ran away when he couldn't beat them. Wasn't he jumping around very happily earlier? Speaking of which, little Aunt Master had interfered in the worldly affairs of this place and suppressed the harpies with unequal strength. To the Heavenly Tao, this matter had indeed crossed the line. It could not be repeated. If she still wanted to summon her master and martial uncle over next time, she definitely couldn't offend the Heavenly Tao this time. Everything had to be done slowly and steadily, right? Little Treasure. Little Defiant stretched out 2 fingers and pinched the little girl's cheeks. He smiled and said, "I remember that you have a blood trace demon dragon by your side. Where is it now?" His eyes were like electricity as he stared at the 4-winged lightning dragon. What a ridiculous baby. That's an ancient dragon. When it grows up, it will be more powerful than all beasts in the world. It's very powerful. The little Stoic expressionlessly replied with an "oh." Against the Sky couldn't help but be very curious when he saw her listless appearance. "What's wrong, child? It couldn't be that someone was blind and stole your little dragon, right?" As he spoke, Against the Sky even glanced at Fan Meng and the others with an extremely intimidating gaze. Louie hastily pulled Fan Meng and the others back a few steps and waved her hand, saying, "Old senior, why would we steal the little Stoic's things? I reckon you guys wouldn't dare either." Against the Sky harumphed and turned to look at his aunt-nephew. "Be good and tell Aunt Master what happened. Where's your ancient dragon?" The little Stoic disdainfully grabbed the blood trace demon dragon from the star domain. Chapter 46-36. The little Stoic shook her frail little body and said dispiritedly, "You're talking about this? Aunt Master." Defiant nodded repeatedly with a smile and rubbed the little dragon's head. "How did you make little Master angry?" The blood-patterned demonic dragon was adorably dazed. It looked up with its round eyes and foolishly stared at Defiant in front of it before glancing at its master. The little Stoic threw it back into the star domain in disdain and said with a worried expression, "Aunt Master, do you have a stronger beast? The kind that's sturdier than a small mountain, can run faster than a giant eagle, can pounce on a ferocious beast, and can shake the earth with a roar?" Defiant chuckled. "Yo, it seems this little fellow disdained that blood-patterned demonic dragon for being too weak." This was truly a heaven-defying act. The blood-patterned demonic dragon was one of the most powerful ancient dragon species. It had to be known that after the blood-patterned demonic dragon entered the growth stage, its body could reach several hundred meters in length. Its dragon scales were incomparably hard and impenetrable to swords and sabers. Aunt Master refined a lot of nutrient fluid for beasts and beast tags. It's very effective for the growth of demonic beasts with bloodlines. If you feed the blood-patterned demonic dragon a mouthful every day, it'll definitely enter the growth stage in less than 3 months. The little stoic's eyes brightened. At that time, it won't look like an earthworm anymore. An earthworm. The corners of Defiant's eyes twitched uncontrollably. Looking at his Ant Master's serious expression, he nodded in amusement. Yes. Ant Master, then quickly give me that nutrient fluid. The little stoic hugged her little Ant Master and clamored. She had to make the little lousy dragon a bit stronger, a bit stronger. Defiant nodded and took off a slender bangle that glowed with a lotus-pink luster from his wrist, slipping it onto the little stoic's wrist. Patting her small hand, Defiant said, "It's all inside." The nutrient fluids taken by humans and beasts are categorized. Take a look when you take it. The little stoic's eyes brightened. Just as she was about to speak, her footsteps suddenly halted, and she took out a jade communication talisman from her sleeve. There was a line of small words written on it. "Fortunately, I didn't disappoint you. Come quickly." The little fellow was instantly delighted. Although her expression didn't change, her tone was very brisk. "Ant Master, let's go. I'll take you to the sea." Qi Nitian's gossipy nature was instantly aroused by the little stoic, and he nodded repeatedly. Okay, let's go." Xiao Bao, it's not easy for us to get together. Let's put these messy things aside and have a good chat with your martial uncle. Arbor nodded repeatedly. He moved a land whale out of the star field, carried his youngest martial uncle, jumped onto the whale's back, and left immediately. Fan Meng and the others looked at each other and smiled bitterly. Tens of thousands of mutated harpies who had been dipped in poison had died in the realm of forgetfulness, and they had to give an explanation. But speaking of which, this martial uncle of the little stoics that she had never met before was truly quite impressive. A prideful master like Mao Yang was actually worthless in front of that person. This big guy is moving so fast in the sea. Little Uncle Master sat on the land whale and fiddled around. He said happily, "Little treasure, this big fellow looks cumbersome, but I didn't expect it to be so fast. It's even faster than this when it's walking on land." In the distance, he saw a 3-story ship anchored there. Defiant narrowed his eyes and sized up that ship. TSK, what an extravagant origin restoration tool. Arbor saw a tall figure standing at the ship's bow in the distance. Chapter 46-37. Ant Master, let's go. Arbor picked up little Ant Master and stored the land whale into the star domain the instant they took off. Niantian, is this child addicted to dragging me around? The little stoic carried Sir Qi Niantian and landed on the deck of Crimson Firmament Blue Waves. Whoosh! A large group of people hastily surrounded them and shouted at the same time, "Jojo, are you all right? Jojo, why are you so disobedient? Why did you sneak off on your own?" "Duan you knows," Arbor said with a straight face. "Jojo, you didn't encounter any danger when you went deep into the enemy camp, right? Even if you're going into a tiger's den, you should bring some people with you. Isn't that so? What if something happens when you go in alone? How do you want us to live? Duan you knows." The little stoic repeated and looked up at the man who was silently standing outside the crowd and looking at her expressionlessly. Feeling inexplicably guilty, the little stoic pattered over with her face plastered to her cheeks. "You didn't tell everyone." Duan Yu swept her a chilly glance. "I told them that you didn't listen to me and insisted on going deep into the enemy camp alone." Sir Jojo was embarrassed. "I messaged you and told you I had a trump card." "Where's the trump card?" Duan Yu looked at her with a sarcastic smile. "You're going to become a little conman if you keep tricking people." "Trump card." Arbor hastily turned around and patted the crowd behind him. Make way, make way, make way. "And master, and master." The little stoic squeezed through the crowd and saw little Enchanting standing nearby with his hands behind his back with a solemn expression. She inexplicably felt that little Ant Master was simply too adorable like this. Arbor wanted to laugh inwardly and ran over to pick up the little girl. He quickly walked back to Duan Yu's side and waved the little girl in front of everyone. Here, my trump card is here. I summoned it with a saint-grade deity inviting talisman. Everyone's eyes fell on Qin Nidian. Chi Xian couldn't help but laugh. Jojo, where did you find this kid? Did you pick it up from the sea? What do you mean I picked it up? Arbor quickly raised his hand and patted the back of Qi Xuanxuan's hand twice. Don't spout nonsense. This is my martial uncle. Hurry up and call him martial uncle. Don't be so rude. Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Little Ant Master sized up the group of people in front of him with a serious expression. While everyone was looking at her, she was also evaluating the strength and cultivation of these juniors. His Excellency Qin Nidian suddenly raised his small hand, and a ball of light landed on the railing beside him, making a loud sound. Everyone jumped in fright. Arbor's hands trembled as he hugged his little martial uncle. He hurriedly shouted, "Martial uncle, don't ruin it. This is my boat, don't damage it." What a sturdy hull. His Excellency Qin Nidian, who was done with his destructive experiment, quickly kicked his legs. Child, hurry and let your martial uncle down. Everyone, why did they feel that the situation in front of them and this conversation sounded so strange and out of place? Arbor let go of his hand. His Excellency Qin Nidian landed on the ground and scampered to the railing. He jumped up and touched here and there. He thought to himself, I used 30% of my strength just now, but it didn't even leave a scratch on this boat. It can be seen how strong this origin returning tool's defense is. My child is indeed a child with great fortune. Chapter 46-38. To think that Xian Huang, that brat, would nag at her all day long. No matter what, she didn't know how baby was doing over there. She didn't know if he was bullied. Baby was so stoic and inarticulate. Even if he was bullied or wrongly accused, he wouldn't open his mouth to defend himself and would only silently get angry. Her ears were about to grow calluses from listening to her nagging every day. She was worried all day long and felt that baby really wasn't doing well. Especially the first 2 times they parted in a hurry. He even saw that little treasure was seriously injured and fell out with that old geezer Heavenly Dao several times. He wanted to tear open space and come over, but he was stopped. Even though that old geezer Heavenly Dao shamelessly guaranteed that little treasure was completely fine, he couldn't set his mind at ease until he saw it with his own eyes. This time, he saw it with his own eyes. Seeing that this child had so many friends supporting her, His Excellency Qin Nidian instantly felt like his child had finally grown up and knew how to make friends. His Excellency Qin Nidian thought in his heart. Uncle Master. Arbor hastily walked to the railing and glanced curiously at his Uncle Master. What was wrong with Uncle Master? Why was she hanging by the railing and touching it? What was she touching? His Excellency Qin Nidian landed on the ground and coughed lightly. This origin restoration weapon, you guys call it a holy weapon, right? Where did you get this holy weapon from, child? An old grandpa insisted on giving it to me on the way, so I accepted it. Everyone, His Excellency Qin Nidian, why did he feel like this child was talking about a fantasy story? I gave him a large jug of wine, so it should be considered an exchange, right? Arbor pondered and said. His Excellency Qin Nidian, why did he suddenly not want to talk to this little imp? The little stoic ran to her Uncle Master's side and reflexively picked her up. Uncle Master, what do you want to say? You guys get off the ship first. I'll refine this holy weapon for you. It can increase its speed by 2 times, increase the flow of time by 12 times, and enhance the power of space. Everyone simultaneously widened their eyes and looked at this 5 to 6-year-old Uncle Master next to the little stoic as if they were looking at a god. It was hard to imagine that this martial uncle could actually refine and modify a natural sacred artifact based on its foundation. The little stoic's eyes brightened, and she casually asked, "Aunt Master, do you have any handwritten copies of secret manuals on refining? You know how to refine artifacts?" Arbor shook his head. "No. Aren't you going to learn?" Arbor shook his head again. "My husband is here." What he meant was that she didn't need to worry about refining armaments anymore. Against the Sky looked around and asked, "Where's the young man I saw last time? Martial nephew and son-in-law? Shouldn't they meet each other properly before beating them up?" "Uncle Master, he's in seclusion." Against the Sky lifted his small paw to rub the little stoic's head. "Go look for it in the space bracelet I gave you just now. I should have thrown it inside." So the bracelet contained more than just potions. The little crown princess nodded happily. "All right then. By the way, martial uncle, how long will it take you to refine it?" "It will take about 6 hours. Then how about we sail the ship back to our island first, and then you can slowly refine it." My family Xiao Bao is already a great island owner." His Excellency Qin Nidian exclaimed with sparkling eyes. The little stoic was embarrassed. "It's just a rundown deserted island, Aunt Master." Qi Xianxian and the others all gathered around with a whoosh. Chapter 4639. "Jojo, is this really your Aunt Master?" "Yes, Aunt Master." Arbor nodded and glanced at Qi Xianxian. "You even hugged her thigh before. Did you forget?" Our dear Qi Xianxian was dumbfounded. "When did I hug such a small child's thigh?" "It's that golden statue." "Oh, ah." Realization dawned on Qi Xianxian. "It's the golden statue. So that's why. That golden statue is Jojo's Aunt Master and Master." Jojo seemed to have mentioned it before, Mata chimed in. The crowd once again fell into a lively discussion. His Excellency Qin Nidian joyfully looked at the children around him, genuinely happy for his little treasure. Looking at how energetic these children were, his little treasure would definitely become livelier and more cheerful in the future with friends like this. Her facial paralysis would be completely cured, right? Evidently, this Excellency's vision for his aunt-nephew's future was too perfect. When Arbor saw a bunch of people surrounding his Aunt Master and chatting happily, he silently retreated and quickly ran to Duan Yu's side. He coughed lightly and asked, "Are we really going to capture Mu Qingya and the others? Before that, shouldn't you properly explain to me? Why won't you listen to me?" Our dear Duan Yu looked at her with a sardonic smile and didn't give her a chance to change the topic. "Speak." Sir Jojo rubbed his fingers together and muttered softly, "I already said I'm confident." "Oh." Arbor quickly looked up and muttered, "Yes. I didn't think I would be able to summon Aunt Master over." She expected to summon a mighty figure above the venerated immortal realm in the holy region. He might not be able to eliminate everyone on the enemy ship, but he should be more than enough to ensure her safety. Thankfully, she summoned Aunt Master Nidian over this time. After all, when she was attacked by tens of thousands of harpies, if it weren't for Aunt Master holding the fort and insta-killing them, she would have suffered for sure. This means my luck is pretty good. This was what the little stoic thought in her mind. Duan Yu poked her forehead and said aloofly, "Do you still think your luck is pretty good? Since I was able to summon Martial Uncle this time, I can still take the risk like this next time, right?" The little stoic decisively shook her head and sincerely admitted her mistake. "I won't be so impulsive next time." "You're right, I will definitely listen to you." This little rascal actually took the initiative to admit his mistake so decisively, causing Duan Yu's belly full of complaints and words of reprimand to be stuck in his throat just like that. The little fellow was too quick-witted. As a result, he couldn't say anything else. Pooh. Feng Zhangqing coughed lightly and said with a smile, "Well, since the saintess already knows her mistake, I think we can probably skip this admonishment process." "You're too shameless." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal shook his head helplessly. Just now, they had agreed to teach the little stoic a lesson together. However, in less than 3 sentences, some of them immediately changed sides. Feng Zhangfei cried out, "Forget it, forget it. She already admitted her mistake, so stop nagging." Sir Jojo suddenly felt that Feng Zhangfei was especially pleasing to the eye today. She glanced at him approvingly and hastily added, "Actually, I wasn't completely defenseless. Besides the sacred grade deity inviting talisman, I also brought a bottle of spirit governing pills." This spirit governing pill was a pill produced by a 5-colored treasure beast. Taking 1 pill every month could imperceptibly improve one's divine conscious. Chapter 4640. Taking 2 pills at a time could allow one's divine conscious to rapidly break through the bottleneck within an hour and directly advance to another level. Once her divine conscious broke through to advanced rank in a short period of time, she would definitely be able to break through the old geezer's great god sealing array within a certain period of time. As long as she escaped from the great god sealing array, she would be able to enter the star domain at any time and not be controlled by anyone. So strictly speaking, she had actually made ample preparations before leaving. However, it was indeed an unexpected gain for Ant Master to annihilate tens of thousands of poisoned harpies with a single slash. Duan Yu silently glanced at her. The little stoic quickly said, "If you guys don't throw me far away when you encounter danger next time, I'll listen to you guys." Duan Yu raised his eyebrows and scoffed. This little fellow even knew how to bargain and bicker with others. "Go ahead and try." This guy swept her a glance and turned to leave after saying this. The little stoic blinked and harumphed indignantly. "What do you mean?" Leaving after throwing down this thoughtlessly really infuriated Sir Jojo to death. "You know what I mean," Duan Yu replied without looking back. The little stoic quickly dashed forward, but she saw him stop and turn to look at her. The light in the cabin was very dim, and a faint shadow enveloped him, making his slender figure appear somewhat hazy. If he hadn't let her go this time, did this little fellow really think she could follow Heavenly Fate's people deep into the tiger's den? In reality, Duan Yu regretted it when he secretly saw her obediently leaving with Heavenly Fate's people. If he hadn't immediately received her message, he would have followed them long ago. Why would he wait until now? "Why must I go?" "I don't want to beat around the bush with Mu Qingya anymore," Arbor said to Duan Yu seriously. "Sorry, I was willful this time." Duan Yu looked at her deeply and raised his hand, but he ultimately paused and withdrew it. "At your age, it's normal to be willful. I only hope that you will pay attention to your safety." Arbor nodded. "Okay. Why did Mu Qingya leave Heavenly Fate without permission and bring a 1-star youngster out to sea?" "I used the Heart of Misfortune to make a deal with Mao Yang." Arbor made a long story short. He raised his eyebrows and said, "I knew this woman would not let herself be killed. As long as she acts alone, we can catch her. After all, how could a woman without any cultivation escape from Duan Yu's group? When you sent me the message, you said that this Hall Master Mu has a very powerful stairway talisman. Did she use it?" "She did. However, it was given to a young lady." Duan Yu explained, the situation was a bit urgent at the time. Mu Qingya threw the stairway talisman to the girl. A few youngsters escaped with the help of the teleportation array. By the time Feng Zhangqing chased after them, those people had already used the stairway talisman to escape. "And I used the method you mentioned to lock onto this Hall Master Mu with my divine conscious immediately." Duanyu walked to the door of a cabin and slowly pulled it open. She almost escaped, but she was caught in the end. She is indeed very cunning. As Duanyu spoke, he pulled open that cabin door. Mu Qingya's slightly pale and sharp face appeared in front of Arbor's eyes. The two of them looked at each other and saw a flash of light in each other's eyes. The system's comments section was disabled again. It would probably take another 2 days to comment. Don't worry. Chapter 46-41. What should I say? Arbor gazed at the pale and defeated Mu Qingya, a hint of mockery flashing across his lips. Long time no see. Or what goes around comes around. Heaven spares whoever it is. You probably didn't expect that you would fall into my hands in the end. Mu Qingya's pretty face was livid as she glanced indifferently at Arbor. Arbor. She forced the words out from between her teeth. You did it on purpose. What do you mean? Arbor glanced at her indifferently. Arbor. Mu Qingya wanted to pounce, but she didn't succeed. An extremely powerful aura fell on her and pressed her heavily to the ground. Mu Qingya hated him so much that she couldn't speak. She used all her strength and could only move the whites of her eyes a little. This made her feel powerless all over. Her chest was filled with indescribable fury. Arbor glanced at her. I'm really a bit curious now. Is Mu Roshwan your daughter or not? The little princess of the City of Shadows I met before, Mu something. That's your daughter, right? Mu Xiaoxue. Princess Wuxuang walked in and nodded repeatedly. It was Mu Xiaoxue who took Xiao Yi and the other youngsters to escape using a transportation talisman matrix and a stairway talisman. We all heard Miss Mu call Hall Master Mu mother. So the so-called aborted second child was actually the one you secretly had with someone else behind Mu Jingfeng's back. Arbor couldn't help but shake his head. Mu Qingya, you've lived quite a carefree and unrestrained life. Look, even someone as shrewd as Mu Jingfeng is being toyed with in the palm of your hand. That first city lord of the City of Shadows isn't the only subject under your skirt. Mu something. Arbor waved his small hand. Shuntian Prefecture's prefecture lord, Gung Pengcheng, is dead set on you. Mu Qingya gazed icily at the little stoic who mocked her, a sinister glint in her beautiful eyes. What do you want to say? You're not strong enough, so you rely on this method to gain benefits from others. Arbor sneered and looked at her indifferently. You're really dirty, Mu Qingya. Mu Qingya suddenly pounced on Arbor again. She wished she could fly up to Arbor and strangle her with both hands. Arbor. You don't have to shout so loudly. Arbor's tone was flat as he interrupted her. I know that you're unwilling to accept this. But so what? This is the fundamental difference between relying on others and improving oneself. You can only rely on others. Other than others, I can only rely on myself. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Mu Qingya screamed like a madwoman. She groped the ground with her hands and randomly grabbed something. She picked it up and threw it over. Arbor waved his hand, and the decorative ring was hit by the strong wind and shattered on the spot. Mu Qingya's eyes widened as she stared fixedly at the little crown princess in front of her. If she could stab Arbor to death with her eyes, 8 or 10 Arbors would have been stabbed to death by now. Who do you think you are? Ha! You're very noble. Mu Qingya was angry and resentful as she cursed without thinking. If you didn't have the advantage of being born, you might have been worse than any ordinary commoner right now. Arbor stared at her, his eyes sunk into 2 quiet pools, calm and undisturbed. Chapter 46-42. The little crown princess stared at her coldly. I've always been curious. Where did you find out about the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl? Ha! Mu Qingya sneered. How do you think I know? Of course, it was your stupid mother who told me herself. Ha! My mother is indeed quite naive. But compared to you, what do you have to compare with her? You're just mud under people's feet. Dirty and smelly. Even 10,000 of you can't compare to a single strand of my mother's hair. What right do you have to mock her? What a joke. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Mu Qingya glared at her with bloodshot eyes. You shut up, slap. Qiao Mu mercilessly gave her a slap across the air, successfully stifling her crazed screams. I think you should shut up first. Arbor slowly took a step back and sized her up. I don't know why others want to join Tianyun, but your goal should be very clear. You're just an ordinary person. You want to counterattack, right? But it seems that you've chosen the wrong direction. A lousy organization like Tianyun will be drowned in the torrent of history sooner or later. Of course, you and Tianyun are very similar in nature. You're both a bunch of dirty things who peep at the world from the corners. Both of you only deserve to be trampled into the ground and never be reincarnated. What do you know? Mu Qingya's expression was twisted to the extreme as if her nerves had been stimulated to the point of derangement. She shouted sternly, how can people like you, who are blessed by the heavens and born with extraordinary talent, understand the hardships of ordinary people living in this world? Forget it. You'd better get it straight. Ordinary people make up the majority of the population in the 3 continents. According to what you're saying, those ordinary people can't live anymore. And Wushuang curled her lips in boredom. You don't know how many ordinary soldiers there are on the battlefield, right? Don't they want to live? Ordinary soldiers also have their reasons for existing, okay? Mu Qingya's lips trembled. She sneered. What do you know? I, Mu Qingya, used to be a senior executive assistant of the vice president of administration. Why should I become an ordinary person the moment I come here? This broken world of yours, worships force. You are all a bunch of uncivilized barbarians. Can you listen to what others are saying? No matter what happens, in the end, isn't the problem solved by force? And Wushuang looked back at Arbor in confusion. What did she say? What administration? What special assistant? I don't understand. Arbor shook his head, indicating that he didn't quite understand. Instead, Little Defiant's voice came from the door. Hi, how many years have you been here? The little stoic and Duan Yu exchanged glances before turning to look at His Excellency Qin Nidian at the same time. Hello, I didn't expect to see someone from the same hometown here. Qin Nidian ran up with a smile and extended his little paw. The little crown princess hurriedly ran over and dragged her to her side. Martial aunt, what are you doing? Mu Qingya stared at His Excellency Qin Nidian in astonishment. After a while, she asked him in English, you also transmigrated? Little Defiant nodded repeatedly and looked at her with a grin. Yo, if I knew it would be this exciting, I would have brought Xian Huang over to take a look together. Hey, you guys, what was it again? Little treasure, be good. Chapter 46-43. Don't keep tugging on my sleeve. Martial uncle will ask her for you. Little Nitian looked at Mu Qingya with a gossipy expression. What's the name of your boss again? Heavenly Fate. Ah, right, Heavenly Fate. Hee, relatives of the Tendo family. Heavenly Fate, yes, Heavenly Fate. Your boss transmigrated too. No wonder she could make such a big fuss. Those ugly things with wings on their backs that looked like eagles and humans, they were made by you guys. Oh my. That's amazing. Martial uncle. The little crown princess angrily tugged at her sleeve. Little treasure, don't be angry. Martial uncle wasn't praising them, I was just mocking her. What irony. Chiao Mu speechlessly glanced at youngest Ant Master and inwardly thought, can you put away that gossipy expression of yours? Hey, what's the name of your boss? Tell me. Maybe she's from the same hometown as us. Mu Qingya's agitated emotions calmed down slightly. She frowned and looked at Nitian. You don't have to try to trick me. I really don't know who the person at the highest level of heavenly fate is. I only know that everyone calls her ancestor. I don't even know if it's a man or a woman, let alone their age. Ancestor. Arbor muttered. TCH, little Nitian waved his hand and pursed his lips. So boring. Oh right, why did you join them? I don't see any spirit energy fluctuations on your body. You didn't cultivate. You're not a cultivator. 2 knives stabbed into Mu Qingya's heart in a row. She was in so much pain that tears almost flowed out. Did they think she didn't want it? Did they think she couldn't cultivate if she wanted it? That was decided by her innate conditions. The moment she transmigrated, her fate had already been decided. Picking up such a second-hand rotten body, her future path was bound to be bumpy and difficult. I want to cultivate too. But what can I do? I used countless methods to open my mystic meridians and desperately tried to walk the path of a cultivator. But the result? In the end, this body of mine is a congenital trash. It's completely useless. Against the sky dug his ears and quickly took 2 steps back. If she were to get any closer, all Master Mu's saliva would be on her face. Sigh, everything is really full of calamities. Who would have thought that a transmigrator would end up in such a miserable state year after year? What is Ant Master saying? The little stoic asked in confusion. She, against the sky, organized his words and turned to look at the adorable expression on the little girl's face. He couldn't help but laugh as he pounced on her. He climbed on top of her and raised his hand to pinch her little face. Kid, let me explain briefly. Let's put it this way. It's similar to what you guys do here. That's right, this Mu something, the original owner of her body, is already dead. In other words, her original soul might have already been reincarnated. Do you understand? The little fellow's eyes brightened, and in Wushuang and Duan Yu nodded at the same time. Possession. The soul in Mu Qingya's body is no longer the original owner. Ah, right. Little Nitian nodded repeatedly. That's right. She isn't the original Ye anymore. Mu Qingya. Princess Wushuang corrected. Chapter 46-44. The subordinate of the heaven-defying pavilion gave an expressionless "oh." Arbor immediately slapped his thigh, suddenly enlightened. I understand. What do you understand, child? Arbor abruptly turned around and coldly stared at Mu Qingya. Mu Rochuan isn't your biological daughter. It should be said that you weren't the one who conceived Mu Rochuan, right? Isn't that right? This explained everything. Why had Mu Qingya always been indifferent to her daughter, Mu Rochuan? Mu Rochuan was actually conceived by Mu Qingya's original owner, right? No wonder Qin Qing thinks so highly of you. The way you do things is really watertight. Although her naive mother was powerful, her mind was clearly very naive and pure. She simply didn't know that there were so many twists and turns involved. She only thought that Mu Qingya was a woman with a strong temperament who didn't hesitate to personally take the medicine in order to get rid of the child in her belly in order to sever all ties with Mu Jingfeng. You really took the abortion medicine several times, right? So what if I did? Mu Qingya's face was cold and gloomy as she stared at Arbor and sternly shouted, why should I give birth to a child for a cowardly and useless man like Mu Jingfeng? How is he worth my pain and suffering for him? Mu Qingya gnashed her teeth and shouted, who knew that the child was so stable that it was strange. I drank 2 doses of the abortion medicine, but I still couldn't get the child out. Arbor shook his head. It's because when you were taking the medicine, Chen Cheng took my mother's life and gave you the best nutrition medicine. Mother and Chen Cheng both thought that you had a strong temperament and were unwilling to be a mistress, so you took the medicine to abort the child because you felt guilty. Now it seems that they were really too naive. You didn't abort the child for someone else, you did it entirely for yourself. You didn't want to give birth to Mu Rochuan. So after Mu Rochuan was born, you never liked her. And that little princess of the City of Shadows was the one you found and gave birth to yourself. So your attitude towards them is completely different. Because you never thought of Mu Rochuan as your biological daughter. Her existence has always been a stain on your record, a disgrace to you. Every time you see her, you'll think that you've possessed a useless body, and you've even managed to give birth to a daughter for someone else. Yes, yes, yes. Mu Qingya screamed. Now you understand everything. You know everything. What do you want? Ha! I'm nothing more than a worthless life. Now that I've fallen into your hands, you can do whatever you want with me. After saying this, Mu Qingya suddenly turned around and jabbered a long string of things to His Excellency Qin Nitian in the bird language that Qiao Mu and the others could not understand. Little Defiant had a smile on his face, and looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile. After a while, he said, "Don't misunderstand. Strictly speaking, I'm not from your world. I'm here to visit my family, and I'll leave immediately after that. You don't have to waste your time trying to instigate me." "What did Aunt Master say to you just now?" The little stoic grumbled in displeasure. "She instigated you. What does she want with you?" "She said she hoped that I would join them. She and I are from the same hometown and have a common language. When the time comes, she'll definitely lead me to the peak of the world, and so on. But she's really... She doesn't understand the situation at all and speaks nonsense. She couldn't stay in this world for long, so she didn't know how to find a more reliable target to instigate." Chapter 46-45. She even said, "How can people like us who transmigrated be trampled under other people's feet? How can we not rise up and resist? We should join forces." Against the Sky wasn't in the mood to listen to her rambling and directly interrupted her. "Please, one could also reach a stage where people could only look up to them by taking the normal path. One didn't have to continue being a pervert and create a mess of strange creatures to rule the world." "Aunt Master, don't listen to this woman's nonsense," the little stoic shouted in a huff. "Of course Aunt Master won't listen to her." His Excellency Qin Nitian grinned and rubbed the little girl's face. "Aunt Master will listen to you." "Ah, that's right, it's about time. You should disembark first and return to the island. I need to spend some time to modify this ship." "Okay." The little stoic became happy again and nodded. "Aunt Master, then quickly finish and come find me. I'll treat you to a meal." "Good child." The more he looked at this child, the more he liked her. Not only was she pleasing to the eye, but she was also silly and adorable. She was a cute little girl no matter how he looked at her. It was simply too comical to say that she was fierce. Qin Nitian just wanted to ask those people, how was she fierce, how was she? This child had been very sensible and kind since she was young. After she grew up, although her expression remained stoic, he felt that something was a little different. She seemed livelier, just a little bit. Everyone left Qi Shao Canglang to Against the Sky and escorted Mu Qingya and the others back to the snowy island with Arbor. They heard Hao Guang's loud voice shouting, "Second Sect Master, how could you run off the island without saying a word? It was too dangerous." How could it be dangerous? The little stoic said in all seriousness, it's all in the past. Ha ha. Senior Haoguang harumphed. Don't try to change the topic. Second Sect Master, can we trouble you to bring us along on such a dangerous mission next time? Look, there are so many people in the sect, and everyone can do something useful. As Haoguang spoke, he kept glancing at Qin Qi and Lu Zhang and secretly moved behind against the sky. I understand. The little stoic's small face was taut and unperturbed. She nodded and suddenly asked, didn't you say earlier that you forged the world's sturdiest shackles and handcuffs? That's right. Haoguang snorted, didn't you say that I'm not doing my job and that I'm making weird and impractical things? Well, your hands and feet are shackled. You can use them now. Arbor pointed at Mu Qingya and said, cuff her. Duanyu knitted his brows and walked to Arbor's side to quietly ask, you're not going to resolve it? Keep it for the big fish, Arbor said in a low voice. It wasn't easy to catch Mu Qingya. If he didn't keep her to catch a bigger fish, wouldn't it be a waste? You mean? Duanyu asked softly. Someone came back for her. Definitely. Arbor nodded with certainty. It should be within these 2 days. This Hall Master Mu is someone who can make Manor Head Gung unswervingly loyal. I believe that Gung Pengcheng isn't the only person by her side. Duanyu nodded slightly and turned to look at Mu Qingya, who was baring her teeth and glaring at them. He waved his hand and said, take her away first and send more people to watch over her. Arbor, don't waste your time scheming. Chapter 46-46. You're still thinking of catching a big fish from me. Don't lose more than you gain. Mu Qingya yelled coldly. With you as the bait, don't worry. I won't fail. Arbor curled his lips at her, revealing a mocking sneer. That really doesn't look like a smile. Mu Qingya thought. It was as if a knife was carving an arc at the corner of his mouth. It was so cold that one couldn't help but feel uneasy. After all, although you're heartless, there's no lack of infatuated people around you. Shut up. Mu Qingya didn't want to listen to the little crown princess's nonsense anymore. The more she listened, the angrier she got. Although the little crown princess usually didn't talk much, when she used words to poke people, they were all soft knives that made one's whole body hurt. What do you think you have to be proud of? Mu Qingya scolded angrily. It's just because the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl is in your body and has subtly changed your constitution. If that's not the case, why don't you try it? Isn't it because you have a powerful family behind you? The Forgotten River Dragon clan has thousands of years of heritage. Long Chuyan secretly passed the dragon clan's treasure to you. Crackle. A vine whip whipped Mu Qingya's body, killing all the words she hadn't finished speaking. It's luck and fate, Arbor replied coldly. It's useless even if you're envious. After saying that, he coldly watched as Mu Qingya was dragged into the lower cabin by the 2 people like a dead dog. Arbor, you'll regret it. Arbor. Mu Qingya shouted in an impassioned tone as she was dragged away. Arbor sneered and glanced disapprovingly in the direction Mu Qingya left. I'm regretting it now. Xiao Mu thought, I regret that I didn't capture you back to die earlier. That would have saved you from jumping around like a grasshopper in front of me. Arbor was not in the mood to continue talking nonsense with Mu Qingya. He quickly walked to the beach and looked around. Afraid of disturbing Qin Nidian, the group only dared to stop at a place far away from the beach and sneak a peek at this senior. Jojo, does Marshal Uncle Qin mean that in the future, when we stay on the ship, we will be able to enjoy the 12-fold speed of the star domain? Qi Xianxian lowered her voice and asked. Arbor nodded. Yes. Not only that, but Marshall Uncle also said that the speed could be increased threefold, and the entire ship carried a trace of spatial power. Perhaps, within a certain range, once the conditions were met, the ship would be able to tear through space and travel thousands of miles in a single day. Jojo, Marshall Uncle is too amazing. Qi Xianxian muttered softly, let's not disturb her. Let's go and prepare some food. After Marshall Uncle finishes refining, we can start eating. Arbor glanced at Qi Xianxian. Alright, I'll grill the fish for the next few days. No need. Qi Xianxian hurriedly dragged out her tone and said with a smile, with Ma Ta and little Fatty around, you don't need to personally grill the fish. Arbor blinked. Jojo's Lien loves to eat the colorful divine fish grilled by Jojo the most. That's because Her Highness has no choice. Qi Xianxian cursed in her heart. She coughed lightly and winked at Ma Ta. Ma Ta hurriedly stepped forward and said with a smile, Jojo, you don't have to do anything today. Ma Ta and I will take care of everything. Yes, yes, don't tire my Jojo out. Chapter 46-47. I want to roast it for Aunt Master. Sir Jojo suddenly said. Qi Xianxian was taken aback, and then she coughed lightly. Jojo, it wasn't easy for Aunt Master to come from afar. If there's a chance next time, I'll let you do your best. You'd better not poison Aunt Master. Not everyone could be like His Highness, who could accept everything without batting an eyelid. He would eat everything that was roasted, burnt, or roasted to an unrecognizable state. His Highness wasn't an ordinary person. Not many people could be as calm as His Highness in the face of a disaster. Facing a pile of roasted mess, he could still maintain a graceful, cultured, and refined smile, as if what he ate was some exotic delicacy. Pfft, Jojo's Lotus praised me for my improvement. Everyone, could it be that I didn't improve? Arbor turned to look at Feng Chongqing and his brother. The two brothers immediately switched sides and nodded without any integrity. Of course you improved. Your Holiness, please roast it. We'll prepare more ingredients for you. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal inexplicably wanted to laugh. These Phoenix clansmen were truly hilarious. The corners of Qi Xianxian and the others' mouths twitched as they thought to themselves, you guys don't even need to eat. You're all jumping around happily. Aunt Master, Senior, must have suffered. She painstakingly made a spaceship for her little niece, but she still had to eat a roasted barbecue later. Against the heavens said it would take 6 hours to refine this spaceship. In reality, she finished it in about 4 hours. The little stoic was a bit excited, and she was the first to dash onto crimson firmament blue waves and wandered around. The others were naturally very curious, and they hastily followed her onto the spaceship to experience the power of time. Among this group, the ones who were the most astonished were naturally Long Ji and Long Shangyun. They had never experienced such a terrifying flow of time before. Does this mean that we'll stay here for a day and a night, but only 4 hours will have passed outside? Yes, that's what it means. Qi Xianxian nodded and said, in the past, this spaceship was already very fast. Now, Senior said it has to be 3 times faster. The most ridiculous thing was the flow of time, all right. In the future, when he sailed on the sea, it wouldn't affect his cultivation. For those who were bound to sail at sea for 10 days to half a month, it was too cost-effective. He had already spent more than 100 days cultivating on the ship. It should be more than enough for him to do anything. Long Shangyun looked at Arbor with a complicated expression. At this moment, she was completely convinced by this little crown princess. What kind of weirdos were around him? Little treasure, did you roast all of these? Against the sky, picked up a colorful divine fish with a slightly withered skin and took a bite. Although it was a little burnt, the fish meat was very soft and tender. It melted as soon as it entered his mouth. He felt a faint energy slide into his mouth and circulate through his limbs and bones. This fish is really not bad. Marshall Uncle, I've packed some delicious food for you. Take it back and eat it. The little stoic handed a sacred-grade gold storage talisman to His Excellency Qin Nidian and said in all seriousness, "They're all my favorites. Let me think, Aunt Master and Master should also like them." Qin Nidian's eyes lit up. Everyone was speechless. Such an expression was simply too familiar. Usually, when the little stoic and Qi Xianxian were faced with delicious food, their eyes would always light up like this. Chapter 46-48. Although the little stoic kept a straight face all the time and would tell them with a chuckle, "I'm not a foodie." But reality proved that she was a foodie, so she had to admit it after eating. Nidian pulled the little stoic's hand and said earnestly, "Little treasure, you still have 2 soul fragments left. You have to find them as soon as possible. Marshall Uncle is leaving." She could feel the fretful urging of heavenly Tao. "You're leaving now." The little stoic didn't loosen her grip on his hand, her face showing reluctance to part. Nidian chuckled and lightly knocked her head twice. Speaking of which, little treasure didn't recognize Uncle at first glance. "Do you think this is right? You actually don't even recognize Uncle." Uncle's ability to forcefully change the topic was truly. Arbor looked at her exasperatedly and sized her up. He pointed at her small body and said, "That's because Uncle is worlds apart from your original appearance. Uncle's change is truly too great." Little Tian knocked her on the forehead. "That shouldn't be the case. Uncle still needs to prove himself to know." "Ridiculous." The little stoic pursed her lips. "Yes, it's my fault for not recognizing Uncle in time. I'll definitely change in the future and won't be like this again." Only then did His Excellency Qin Nidian nod with a grin. "Uncle is leaving now. You have to be well and let Uncle and your master be at ease." Arbor nodded. "I will, Uncle." Just as he finished speaking, everyone noticed that His Excellency Qin Nidian's figure was abruptly lifted up. Only then did everyone realize that His Excellency Qin Nidian's limbs and body had long been bound by who knew how many transparent heavenly chains. They heard that old geezer Heavenly Law's flustered and exasperated voice. "Qin Nidian, you're ruining the Heavenly Law here again. How can you secretly refine weapons for her? Hurry up and scram. Don't meddle in the affairs of this place anymore. I'm warning you, if you come again, I'll break your dog legs." The word "dog legs" reverberated in the air, leaving behind a series of trembling endings. It could be seen that the old man was truly enraged. Now, he didn't even want to show his face. He directly grabbed Qin Nidian and teleported away. Qin Nidian had an innocent look on his face. Isn't it a habit of being rebellious? Tian Dao, roll, 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 roll. Uncle Master. Jojo jumped up and looked up at the sky. "Little treasure, take good care of yourself." Qin Nidian's figure went down at the speed of light. He was pulled into the layers of clouds by the heavenly Tao and disappeared in an instant. Xiao Mu was originally in a joyous mood, but now, her mood became uncertain and erratic again. He was not happy. The heavenly Tao was a big liar. He had promised that he could spend 24 hours with Marshall Uncle. In the end, less than 12 hours had passed and he was already urging his Marshall Uncle to scram. "Jojo, don't worry." Qi Xianxian comforted him softly. "I don't think the heavenly Tao will be able to control Qin Nidian. At that time, if your excellency wants to see you, you can just sneak over." Hearing this, little Fatty nodded his head. Yes, that's right. Jojo, don't be upset. Let's go now." Before little Fatty could finish his comforting words, everyone looked up at the same time and squinted their eyes to look at a flying spiritual tool coming from afar. This flying spiritual tool was obviously not cheap. On the outside of the cabin, there was a clan emblem. The 8th night watch ended. It was time to sleep. Chapter 46-49. The distance was rather far, so no one paid attention to it. When they got closer, they realized that there was a dragon and phoenix insignia on the outside of the air transportation spirit tool. It was inlaid with gold and jade, and there seemed to be the word duo in the middle. Long Xiangyun's expression changed when she saw the insignia. Oh no, the people from the Forgotten Creek Duo clan are here. If the Forgotten Creek Duo clan received news that their young master had been captured by Arbor, they would not let the matter rest. On the contrary, Qiao Mu's expression didn't change much, and she merely swept that person an indifferent glance. They drove such a large air transportation spiritual artifact here. Why? Are the people from the Forgotten Creek Duo clan here to seek revenge? Qi Xianxian pouted unhappily. Revenge or death, I don't know. Mata shrugged and stretched his neck. But I ate a lot just now, so it's not a bad activity to fight a few rounds to digest. As they spoke, the air transportation spirit tool descended from the sky and stopped on the beach. As soon as the spirit artifact cabin opened, everyone looked at each other in dismay. 3 young men took the lead and ran out of the cabin. They hurriedly found a beach and threw up. Then, an old man with thin eyes and a green face came down from the cabin. He glanced at the young men with an unpleasant expression. Why is he here? Long Xiangyun's expression changed again. Long Huan also frowned slightly and whispered to everyone, this is the most difficult elder to deal with in the Forgotten Creek Duo clan, Wang Xin. Duo Shanming is his personal disciple. Long Huan saw that person walking over and hurriedly explained the old man's identity. Wang Xin has a bad temper. Cousin, you have to be careful. He's coming. Damn, how many people did he bring with him in the spirit tool cabin? Why did a bunch of people come down and throw up? How bumpy is it? Long Huan could not help but smile bitterly. In this world, not everyone is like Cousin, who has countless air transportation spirit tools. The Duo clan is considered a large clan in the Forgotten Creek, but to have air transportation spirit tools, one has to be at least an elder. Their air transportation spiritual tools can't compare to my cousin's, be it in terms of space or speed. Usually, an air transportation spiritual artifact that can carry 300 people can carry 400 to 500 people at most. It's not like it can't fly if you squeeze it a little, Long Qian said with a light cough. Thus, everyone kept their mouths shut. Young Master Long was right this time. He really couldn't use JoJo's standards to judge others. Arbor glanced at Long Huan casually. Familiar? Long Huan smiled bitterly and shook his head. Not really. It's just that the 3rd miss of the Wang Chuan Duo family has a marriage alliance with our Long family. The 2 families have some connections. Arbor chuckled. Long Qian was speechless. She knew that it would be useless to say it out loud. This was because Lord Jojo might not even be willing to give face to the Long clan of Wang Chuan, so why would he care about the future of the Duo clan of Wang Chuan? Elder Wang of the Forgotten River Duo clan is said to have reached the late stage immortal venerable realm. Long Huan reminded softly. This person's strength is not to be underestimated. If possible, it's best not to fight him head-on. Before Long Huan could finish the word head-on, the Tsang Prefecture Emperor's cold rebuke came from beside him. You're courting death. The rising silver-white flame was like a winding silver dragon, rushing rapidly towards Elder Wang on the opposite side. At the same time, a trace of shock flashed across Elder Wang's eyes. Chapter 4650. Cough. He actually coughed out a trace of blood in front of everyone, and he stumbled back 2 steps. Before the little stoic could react to what happened, she saw Duan Yu attacking the old man. His attack was very ruthless. When the silver-white flame rushed in front of the old man, it suddenly exploded. Specks of saint power swept out like a tide and instantly surrounded the old man. Elder Wang stumbled back 2 steps, but he still couldn't steady himself. His head buzzed, and his entire body shuddered several times. In the blink of an eye, Wang Xan saw a slender figure leap in front of him. A soundless silvery white flame leaped from the man's slender fingertips, and he flung it at him without a word. Elder Wang naturally wouldn't foolishly stand there and wait for death. In his haste, he didn't have time to dodge. His brain made the quickest judgment and mobilized all the sacred energy in his body to form a partial defensive divine armor. Wang Xan wanted to block that flame attack in front of him. However, he couldn't block it at all. The old man watched helplessly as that leaping silvery white flame burned a hole in the partial divine armor. The flame without any heat took advantage of the situation to burn his face. This unforeseen event happened very quickly. Duan Yu's method was ruthless and vicious, burning that old man's face. In a flash, everyone discovered in horror that the old man's entire head was enveloped by the silvery white flame. It felt like he was wearing a silvery white helmet. The flame burned neither too quickly nor too slowly as it enveloped the old man's head, slowly combusting without any wind. Those youths who vomited from the jolt all retreated with ghastly pale faces. They only dared to hide far away behind the spirit artifact cabins and shouted at the old man, "Elder Wang, Elder Wang." They didn't dare to do anything else. They stared at Duan Yu as if he was a moving devil, not daring to move an inch. What kind of joke was this? Even Elder Wang, who was at the transcendent god realm, was subdued by that young man in a single exchange. Even if they were given 18 times more guts, they still wouldn't dare to go up and throw away their lives. "Jojo, are you all right?" At this time, Yuan Shiqin, Feng Changqing, and the others had already rushed to Arbor's side. Their expressions were not very good as they carefully sized her up. Qiao Mu was muddle-headed, and her pitch-black eyes were still a bit perplexed. She glanced at Shiqin and the others before looking at Qi Xianxian, the little fatty, and the others, who were also full of question marks. "What could happen to me? Does your head hurt? Do you feel unwell? Are you dizzy or not? Can you still stand?" The peony fairy squeezed through the crowd to the little stoic side and repeatedly asked, "Do you want me to help you sit down?" The little stoic looked at them with a question mark on her face. She turned to look at Duan Yu, who was currently throwing a tantrum at the elderly man, and then glanced at He Qin and the others, who had unsightly expressions. "May I ask, what happened? What the hell?" Long Yun was just speaking properly. So why did Duan Yu flare up at the drop of a hat? She hadn't even made a move yet, but Duan Yu had already rushed out to hit the old man. She truly couldn't understand what was going on. Yuan Shiqin was taken aback, and then he sized her up. At the same time that he sighed in relief, he couldn't help but ask, "You don't feel anything?" "I don't." "Feel what?" The little stoic's question mark face turned into curiosity. Dao Wuji's loud voice couldn't resist shouting, "Eh? You really don't feel anything?" Just now, that old man launched a one-on-one divine perception attack at you the moment you met. Does your head not hurt? Are you dizzy? Are you dizzy? Chapter 4651. No pain, no dizziness, no discomfort. I'm completely fine. The little stoic swept a speechless glance over the nervous crowd and spread her small hands at Ma Shiqin. I'm fine, I didn't feel anything. Could you guys have sensed wrongly? Did the old man really attack me? Feng Zhangfei couldn't resist rolling his eyes and sighed with a sigh. Look, where does she look like she's not fine? If she really was hit by that villainous old man's divine sense attack, would she still be able to stand? Would she still be able to speak so much with her divine sense so clearly? They were simply nervous for nothing. This caused him to become nervous like his elder brother. Feng Zhangqing heaved a sigh of relief and then curiously sized up Arbor. Zhou, that elder from the Wangshuan Duo clan, is at the late stage venerated immortal realm. His divine sense is at least at the peak of level 8 divine sense. Do you have some kind of magic treasure on you that can defend against divine sense attacks? Arbor reflexively scratched her head. The golden talisman jade tome counts, right? Just now, she seemed to have seen some light flash past her conscious and then directly dissipate after being shaken by the golden talisman jade tome's golden light. However, even without the golden talisman jade tome's recoil effect, that level 8 divine sense shouldn't be of much use to her, right? Arbor said meekly, I just broke through to level 12 divine sense a few days ago. After saying this, Arbor saw Feng Zhangfei and the others roll their eyes at her in unison. Everyone's inner thoughts were probably, fuck, why didn't you say earlier that you broke through? The peony fairy burst into laughter and said, don't worry about it. Truly hilarious as hell. A level 8 divine sense wants to attack a level 12 divine sense. You're courting death. Pfft, Holy Sun Mi Yen couldn't resist laughing. I already said that Jojo is a child with good fortune. Other people's divine senses absolutely can't surpass their cultivation realm, but she's doing the opposite, ha ha ha. As if he thought it was hilarious, this Lord Holy Sun actually amused himself as he spoke. Everyone, Lord Holy Sun really hit the nail on the head. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's mouth twitched. Jojo, did you break through to level 12 not long ago? What was your previous score? Level 10. Arbor looked at him strangely. Is there a problem? You don't feel uncomfortable? What's wrong? Arbor didn't understand. Well, that's the biggest problem. Do you know that divine sense needs a consciousness pool to contain it? You're just a little god-tier master who has just broken through the 5th level, but your divine sense has already broken through the 12th level. Don't you think this is strange? That's right, that's right. Do you know how many divine senses we have? Let me tell you, an average person's divine sense would reach the peak once it reaches the 10th level. It's absolutely impossible for him to surpass my cultivation level. That's why the old man attacked you with his divine sense, because he had absolute confidence in his own divine sense. Who would have thought that I would meet a weirdo like you? Qi Xianxian and the others glanced at them speechlessly. They saw a group of Transcendence Realm cultivators surrounding the little stoic and giving her new knowledge one after another. Isn't there a level 15 divine sense? Arbor asked in confusion. Everyone chuckled at her, but their laughter was all very strange. The little stoic pulled out her hand and smacked Feng Zhangfei, who was the closest to her, on the head. Why are you being so eccentric? Speak properly. The group of Transcendence Realm cultivators, we can't be bothered to speak to you. Chapter 46-52. What's with your expressions? The little stoic looked around and harumphed. The peony fairy giggled and walked up to hold the little stoic's arm. Jojo, they're right. Normally, level 10 divine senses are considered the peak. Divine senses can reach a radius of 500 kilometers. It's not a boast to say that you can kill a person from 500 kilometers away. The peony fairy suddenly looked at the little stoic. What about Jojo? Where can your divine senses reach? 1,500 kilometers? Vast and boundless. Sir Jojo thought for a moment and spread out his hands. It doesn't feel boundless. If I settle down now, I can sense the villages beyond the river of forgetfulness. Fuck, then wasn't it 8,000 nautical miles? Everyone, alright, go play on the side. The peony fairy brusquely flung away Jojo's hand and turned to walk towards Holy Sun Mi Yen. Transcendent Realm Cultivators, we don't want to talk to you right now. Go away. Qi Xian couldn't resist chuckling. She finally understood what was going on now. Just now, a group of Transcendent Realm Cultivators explained to Sir Jojo the range of divine senses. As a result, Jojo made a bunch of Transcendent Realm Cultivators. Depressed Arbor blinked and quickly turned to look in Duan Yu's direction. In this short period of time, that old man Wang Xayan had already been roasted to his last breath by Duan Yu's demonic Emperor of Fire and had almost fainted on the ground. That flame was very miraculous. After burning for so long, it didn't roast the old man beyond recognition. But through that silver-white flame helmet, the old man's expression was so distorted that it was almost unbearable to look at. Arbor ran over briskly and asked curiously, Duan Yu, your flame can actually roast his conscience? It was too miraculous. If she didn't recognize wrongly, Duan Yu's demonic Emperor of Fire had already charged into Wang Xayan's conscience and was wantonly wreaking havoc inside. You can also launch a mental attack at him. Duan Yu tugged at her and pulled her a few steps away. Don't get too close, the stench is unbearable. Arbor nodded, and his eyes lit up. Adhering to the spirit of asking if he didn't understand, the little guy asked, how do I attack him mentally? Is that so? Arbor gestured the direction of the power transmission with 2 fingers. Duan Yu's mouth twitched, and he coughed lightly as he explained, generally speaking, after entering the Transcendent Realm, one would naturally use their divine conscience to envelop and control the 5 spirits to attack the other party's conscience. The 5 spirits are formless and formless, and the consciousness is also something without a physical form. When the 2 are combined, a person with a high level of consciousness can launch an attack at a person with a lower level of consciousness. If the other party is unprepared, his consciousness can be torn apart on the spot. That was why he was so angry just now. The old man harbored extreme malice toward Jojo. As soon as they met, he used his divine conscience to control the 5 spirits and launched a fierce attack on Jojo's conscience, wanting to defeat him in one blow. If the old man succeeded in one blow, Jojo's consciousness might be muddled for several months in the best-case scenario. In the worst-case scenario, he might directly become an idiot or a cripple, or his conscience would be completely torn apart. It would be impossible for him to reassemble it in the future. This old man was so vicious that he had no choice but to strike back and severely injure him. Use your divine conscience to envelop the 5 spirits, Sir Jojo muttered subconsciously, and his eyes suddenly focused. He used his divine conscience to envelop a ball of lush green holy wood spirit and pointed at the old man's glabella, tapping lightly in the air. For more. Chapter 46-53. Immediately after, Wang Xayan let out a heart-wrenching scream of terror. Then, his entire body fell backwards and landed on the ground with a thud. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, momentarily baffled. This is if the little stoic used a mental attack on her. It should be. Otherwise, why would this Elder Wang be in this state? Hey, you guys! Why are you hiding over there? Send someone who can speak. Qi Xian unhappily shouted at the youths who were hiding behind the spirit artifact cabins. A series of rustling noises were heard. It should be that group of youths pushing and shoving each other for a while. Finally, after a while, a young man who looked to be around 27 or 28 years old finally walked out from behind the spirit tool cabins while trembling with fear. He immediately saw Elder Wang, who was rolling on the ground and frothing at the mouth. It felt like his heart was struck by something, and he immediately panicked as if he had lost his backbone. We aren't, no, we aren't. This fellow stuttered, his eyes continuously glancing at Elder Wang, who was rolling on the ground. When he noticed the icy expressions of the little stoic and the others, his heart thumped harder, and he couldn't even speak coherently. Maudie interrupted him impatiently. Is there anyone who can speak in a complete sentence? A few heads poked out from behind the spirit tool cabins and shoved each other. Finally, a short-haired young girl was pushed out. That young girl looked rather quick-witted. Although she was trembling all over like that youth, she could at least speak clearly. Who are you people? Why did you severely injure me, an elder of our Wangchuan duo clan? Her trembling gaze swept over everyone's faces. Suddenly, her eyes lit up as if she had seen a brother she hadn't seen in 800 years. She hastily waved in Long Shangyun's direction. Sister Shangyun. Brother Long Yun, it's you people. Long Huan sighed and glanced at Long Shangyun, who remained silent. The other party had already greeted them so fervently. Since his younger sister wasn't willing to speak, then he could only step forward. Miss Duo, how are you? Long Huan replied stiffly. They were quite familiar with this Miss Duo. Usually, during the holidays, when relatives visited each other, they would often have a meal together. Miss Duo had already opened her mouth to greet them, so it would be impolite to pretend that they didn't see her. Miss Duo was an easygoing person. When she saw Long Huan talking to her, she quickly ran over to him. Brother Long Huan, what happened just now? Why are you with these people? Miss Duo timidly glanced at Arbor and the others. She nodded at Long Huan fawningly and smiled reservedly. Brother Long Huan, I'm sorry. Can you explain it to us? Long Huan sighed. He was truly unwilling to meddle in the various disputes between the duo clan of Wang Chuan and the Little Stoic. Judging from the current situation, the Forgotten River duo clan seemed to be rushing down the path of death. The wise move was to stay away from these people who were courting death, but now, the young miss of the Wang Chuan duo clan clung to him as if he was her savior. He couldn't bring himself to shake her off coldly. On the side, Long Shangyun swept Miss Duo a glance. How could you not know what happened? Just now, that elder Wang of your clan attacked others as soon as they met. Chapter 46-54. Now that you've suffered a loss and can't get out of the situation, you want to drag my brother down with you. Miss Duo, who do you think my brother is? My brother isn't a sucker who can be ordered around by you. You can forget about it. After Long Shangyun reprimanded her brother, she pulled him back a step, planning to stay far away from Miss Duo. Their relationship with the Wangchuan duo clan was just so, so there was no need for them to stand up for this matter. Why did they have to offend that vengeful little stoic? It wasn't like they had nothing better to do. Long Huan couldn't help but chuckle bitterly. His younger sister seemed to be a lot more sensible now. The fundamental reason was that they were scared of being tricked by the little stoic. The siblings had already figured out a routine by now. The best way to get along with the little stoic was to mind their own business. If you didn't offend her, she wouldn't bother to waste words with you for 8 to 10 years. If you bullied her, she would pay you back tenfold. She would drag you to her grandma's house and make you bleed. That was how it was. In summary, everything could be discussed if you didn't provoke her. If you provoked her, it was like poking a hornet's nest. She would immediately teach you a lesson. Sister Shangyun. Miss Duo called out aggrievedly and looked expectantly at Long Huan. Brother Long Huan, it was just a misunderstanding earlier. We also didn't know why Elder suddenly attacked that girl. Now, since Elder has also been taught a lesson, then let's drop this matter for the time being, alright? Long Huan reflexively turned his head and glanced at the little stoic. He then coughed lightly and said, Apologies, if you want to apologize, you better find the right person. I can't decide on this matter. The person you've offended now is the crown princess of the divine province, Fierce Star Little Demon. If you want to apologize, you should apologize to the person in question, right? Miss Duo's eyes abruptly widened, as if she didn't dare to believe that Long Huan and his sister wouldn't help them. We only rushed here because we received a message from the Fireworm Squad's captain, Sir Wuching, and learned that Little Ming was captured. Our original intention was only to save him and didn't have any other intentions. Miss Duo's words caused Long Shangyun to purse her lips disapprovingly. Long Shangyun thought in her heart that his words were truly fake. If he really wanted to deal with this matter, he wouldn't have made such a big fuss in the first place. Moreover, he wouldn't launch a mental attack on the little stoic as soon as they met. How did they look like they were here to have a peaceful talk? They wanted to capture a core member first and then exchange him for Duo Shanming, right? At this time, the old man had slowly calmed down, but he had completely fainted. Miss Duo was extremely flustered on the inside, but she still forced herself to maintain a bit of a noble family's young miss on the surface. She took a deep breath and finally turned to look at the little stoic. This miss. Our Wang Chuan Duo clan has also heard about what happened before. Indeed, it was my brother's arrogance that offended everyone. However, he should have received the punishment he deserved by now. Could you please be magnanimous and let go of my brother? Arbor thought it was a little funny. In her eyes, these people were worse than dogs begging for mercy by the roadside. Each and every one of them was like an idiot. Their brain circuits were completely different from normal people. If they could beat her, they obviously wouldn't have this kind of attitude right now. It was precisely because they couldn't beat her and couldn't gain any advantage from her that they softened their attitudes and spoke very hilariously. On what basis did they want to take Arbor down a notch as soon as they met? Chapter 46-55. Why would they immediately put on a pitiful expression and beg for forgiveness when they couldn't beat Arbor? It was as if the moment the other party said, "Please forgive me," she would immediately be magnanimous and forgive them. Was there something wrong with their brains? Was this the attitude they should have when negotiating? It was obvious that they didn't think much of her from the start. It was only now that they realized that the enemy's strength seemed to be far beyond their imagination, so they had no choice but to soften their attitude. Even so, their begging attitude still carried a sense of superiority, as if they had no choice but to beg her and felt wronged. If you don't agree to let them go after we beg you and don't agree to reconcile with us, then you're going too far. A bunch of idiots with damaged heads. Seize their resources and throw them into the sea. Let them fend for themselves. Arbor coldly snorted and gave an order. What about this flying spirit artifact? Qi Xianxian pointed at the flying spirit artifact on the beach. Smash it. It was a pile of scrap metal. She felt that it was embarrassing to give it away. All right. Little Fatty cheered, carrying his double-headed hammer and rushing forward. It felt so good to smash the spirit artifact cabin. Bang 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 sounds rang out as the hammer smashed down. The 100 or so youths who had been hiding behind the spirit artifact cabin hurriedly went forward to stop them. What are you doing? Scram! Little Fatty smashed his hammer at the feet of one of the youths. Hide in your shells in the future. It's best if you don't come out and cause trouble. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you. They were still youths full of vigor after all. How could they endure such humiliation? The group of youths from the Forget River Duo clan immediately clamored and took out weapons from their consciousness. They angrily said, We're not afraid of you. You dare to attack us. My grandfather won't let you off. The little fatty chuckled and smashed his hammer on the back of the clamoring young man, causing him to fall onto the spirit artifact cabin and let out a shrill cry. You guys are so funny. Jiang Shaoxin shook his head speechlessly and walked to the little fatty's side. You can't win, so you called Dad and Grandpa here. He silently took out a divine artifact from his conscious and said with an indifferent expression, Do you want to take the initiative to hand over your resources? Or should we beat you half to death before searching your inner worlds? Mata chuckled and shook her head with her arms crossed. You guys are really a bunch of kids who haven't weaned yet. Why don't you send a message home first? If you call me Grandpa, call me Grandpa. If you call me Daddy, call me Daddy. If you call me Mom, call me Grandma, call you Aunt or Auntie, anything will do. Just come. Mata laughed maniacally. Let's see. How many ants does your Wangchuan duo clan have that you can gather? The corner of Qi Xuanchuan's mouth twitched, and she teased, Don't forget to call your master along. Everyone was speechless. The group of youths from the Wangchuan duo clan were probably about to explode from the incitement of their little companions from the Sikong Planet battle team. The 27 or 28-year-old youth who was the first to be pushed out to negotiate stammered with trembling lips, You, don't go too far. Who's bullying you? Mata smiled at him. Aren't we giving you a chance to go home and call your grandpa and grandma? Chapter 46-56. You're already so considerate. What else do you want? The Sikong Star battle team members all pulled out their divine weapons in tacit agreement and beamed at the Wangchuan duo clan youths who were cowering like quails. Attack! Our dear Qi Xianxian commanded. Ma Shichen and the others couldn't resist twitching their mouths. The 7 hilarious fellows from the Sikong Star battle team rushed up and gave those unlucky fellows from the Wangchuan duo clan a violent beating. Xiao Mu hastily summoned a washboard that was that long and that wide from her conscious Duan Yu's eyelids twitched uncontrollably. They watched as the little stoic swung her washboard and charged toward the Sikong Star squad with her head covered. She even shouted righteously, shocking everyone. The Sikong Star battle team will definitely win. The Sikong Star battle team members reflexively followed up with Jojo's words. Jojo will definitely win. You're not fighting alone. Everyone, did they freaking want to laugh themselves to death by answering this slogan? Pfft, the peony fairy guffawed. Damn, are Jojo and the others trying to make me laugh myself to death? Stop joking around. Look at these frivolous little faces. Definitely win, my ass. Wasn't it just finding an excuse to beat up the duo clan? Long Shangyun watched speechlessly for a long while. Brother, how about we go back and rest first? That's fine too. This scene made people panic. In less than 15 minutes, the duo clan members all threw down their weapons and surrendered. They originally wanted to scurry away like rats but were beaten to the ground. It wasn't that there was a huge difference in strength. Most importantly, every member of the Sikong Star battle team had a divine weapon above level 10. The washboard in Jojo's hand was also a divine weapon. Long Shangyun really had to hand it to the people around her. Arbor's temper wasn't particularly good to begin with. Not to mention the stoic face, but he was also two-faced and liked to trick people. He was best at tricking his enemies to death. Now that she was surrounded by artificers, what kind of toys did they make to tease her? The members of the duo clan really made one's heart ache. Looking at them reminded him of the countless times he and his sister had suffered at the hands of Arbor. Blue was extremely thin. Forget it, what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. Chow Chow, your washboard seems to be even more powerful than before. Ma Ta looked back at Xiao Mu in the midst of his busy work. I asked Mi Guang to improve it previously, and it's not bad. Now, the washboard was already a divine artifact. Previously, when the ape offered it as an offering, it was only a spirit artifact. Speaking of which, he didn't know which cultivator this washboard belonged to. The Yuan really took in all sorts of things. In the Xuanji mystic realm, he was really a scavenger. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn. The Seekong Star battle team plundered everything from the inner worlds of those unlucky fellows, sealed everyone's spiritual senses, and drove them all out of the snowy island. Sir Jojo's mood only improved when he saw them drifting further and further away on the sea, each holding a piece of wreckage of a flying spirit artifact. As long as they dared to cause trouble, Sir Jojo dared to scam them until they lost everything. Build a sign in front of the snowy island. Arbor snorted and said, in the future, this island will belong to Jojo. Anyone who passes by and doesn't look pleasing to the eye will have to pay. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. Uncle Master was right. In the future, she would be the owner of this island. Humph. The 8th night watch ended. Chapter 46-57. After issuing a series of orders, the island master, who was immediately appointed, tossed everything to someone else and became a hands-off boss as usual. On the other side, Duan Yu dragged that old man, Wang Xan, to Arbor and tossed him aside. At this time, Wang Xan was unconscious and crashed to the ground with a bang. His eyes, ears, mouth, and nose were all crooked. He might still be 30% clear-headed, but he couldn't utter a single word. This guy simply didn't expect that things would turn out contrary to his wishes when he came to negotiate in high spirits. Not only did he fail to save little young Sir Duo Shanming, but he also kicked a stiff iron plate and took a big tumble. The old man seriously couldn't figure out why the mental attack command he issued at the beginning of their encounter seemed to have hit a natural barrier and bounced back to injure him. No matter what, the old man couldn't have imagined that Arbor, a level 5 minor divine cultivator, would possess a level 12 divine conscious. In terms of divine conscious, the little stoic crushed the old man. There was no way to refute this. Duan Yu unceremoniously kicked the old man several times, causing him to flip over and wake up with a series of coughs. Are transcendent god realm cultivators this strong? His conscience was burned for so long by Duan Yu's demonic emperor fire, but he actually didn't die completely. He can still wake up faintly after being kicked a few times. The little stoic pondered in her mind, but she didn't say anything. However, her eyes were filled with curiosity as she stared at him. I gave him a pill just now. That was why the old man was barely hanging on to half his life. Duan Yu turned to look at her. Do you have anything to ask? If not, he would deal with this old man. The old man harbored resentment toward them and absolutely couldn't leave him alive. I do. Arbor's pitch-black eyes swiveled, and she stepped forward to ask, how did you feel just now? The old man looked up and glared at her with resentment. It was only then that Arbor clearly saw that the old man's face had already been burned by the demonic emperor fire to the point that his original appearance couldn't be seen. His face was fine earlier. Why did it suddenly become like it was roasted? Arbor looked at the old man in confusion. Duan Yu gave him a heavy kick and coldly said, answer the question. His handsome eyes stared coldly at the old man, as if he was looking at a dead man. Answer me honestly, and I'll send you on your way. Otherwise, I will scatter your soul and extract the power of the 5 spirits. The man's cold and emotionless voice made the old man shudder uncontrollably. Spare me, spare me. The old man didn't want to be so cowardly. As he begged for mercy, he felt his face burning. But in the current situation, the situation was stronger than the person. He had lived for so long, had already broken through to his current realm, so he really didn't want to die in such a cowardly manner. At this time, old man Wang was sincerely regretting it. If he had known that he would encounter such a fierce person on this trip, he would not have promised the duo family that he would do his best to bring their young master back. He regretted it, really regretted it. Now, not only did he fail to save her, he even lost his life. Old man. I asked you a question. Answer. Arbor glanced at him curiously. This old man's twisted expression was quite rich, so his mental state should be filled with complicated emotions right now. You know. Duan Yu coldly glanced at Wang Xian. Chapter 46-58. You're dead for sure. The young man's eyes only revealed this meaning. The old man instantly deflated like a deflated balloon. Just now, my conscience was attacked by a surge of wood spirit energy, and this wood spirit energy was suppressing my conscience. When the old man said this, he seemed to have suddenly understood something, and his old eyes abruptly widened. He couldn't resist exclaiming, You. So it's your divine conscience is actually higher than mine. How was this possible? Just now, the wood spirit power that was wrapped in the consciousness suddenly penetrated into my consciousness. It's your doing. This was simply unimaginable. How was this possible? Wasn't this little girl before him just a level 5 minor divine cultivator? How could her divine conscience be higher than his cultivation realm? Not only was her cultivation realm higher, but it was also much higher misconception. He must have misunderstood. The old man felt aggrieved and shook his head sullenly. Impossible. Arbor couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him anymore. She only needed to know the answer. In other words, when she used her divine conscience to envelop the wood spirit energy, carry out mental suppression, and infiltrate the conscious, it was effective. She succeeded once again. Duan Yu. Arbor turned to look at Duan Yu in high spirits. I succeeded just now. Duan Yu chuckled. Of course you succeeded. That old man even fainted from your attack just now. Jojo is really smart, Duan Yu praised with a smile. He only casually told her to use her divine conscience to envelop the 5 spirits and carry out a mental attack. In the end, this little fellow tried it herself and succeeded on her first try. The peony fairy and the others silently ignored this little rascal. This fellow's talent was a bit of a pain in the ass. Duan Yu raised his hand and heavily struck the old man's head with his palm. Before the old man could successfully beg for mercy again, he was engulfed by the surging Devil Emperor's fire. Arbor glanced at it and discovered that this silvery white flame was much more turbulent than the one he used just now. This time, it completely enveloped the old man, burning him to the point that it looked extremely vicious. In just a short few seconds, the old man fell down weakly. The Devil Emperor's fire burned this person to ashes, including his skin and bones. After watching the old man turn into ashes, Duan Yu's icy eyes finally shifted slightly. One must know that at the moment when the old man's spiritual consciousness rushed towards Jojo's spiritual attack, he was so nervous that he almost stopped breathing. That feeling of experiencing life and death was not good at all. Arbor turned to look at Duan Yu. Duan Yu. I'm fine. The little crown princess nodded and suddenly patted his head. I'm fine, don't be afraid. I will protect you. After that, the little fellow turned around and waved at the crowd. He urged, have you built the sign at the door? He had to clearly write down the rules. Those who don't follow the standard will have to pay when they pass by my island. Duan Yu had a smile on his lips as he watched the little stoic's energetic figure dashing away. He muttered to himself in his heart, I will also protect you. Jojo, I wish you good health and good fortune. Save us. Save us. Is there anyone who can come save us? On the surface of the sea, hundreds of young men and women hugged the wreckage of the spirit artifact cabins as they wailed and wailed on the vast water. Miss Duo, there seems to be someone ahead. Chapter 46:59. It's a ship, it's really a ship. Someone's eyes suddenly lit up as he shouted. Hugging the wreckage of the spirit artifact cabin, he raised his hand as he floated and waved vigorously in the direction of the ship while shouting, "Friends on the ship, can you come and save us? We are members of the duo clan of Wangchuan. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Young master, there are so many people floating on the sea." Ling Gu couldn't help but be speechless. She ran to the railing of the ship and looked at the young men and women tossing about in the sea. Young master, quickly come and take a look. Wow, there are at least 100 people. What are they doing in the sea? A plain-colored figure floated to Ling Ji's side and glanced at her. Sure enough, there were many young men and women floating in the sea, each of them lying on a broken piece of debris with drooping heads. She couldn't tell what material the debris was made of, but it seemed to have good buoyancy in the sea and was able to support them as they floated over. Fifth young master, eldest young master invites you over to drink wine and enjoy the dance. A young man who looked like a disciple walked over with a smile and bowed to the zither cultivator. Fifth young master Qin turned around and glanced at him. He restrained his gaze and turned back to say, "Go get these people and fish out the people in the sea first." That disciple was slightly startled and walked to Ling Ji's side. He looked down and saw many people in the sea waving in their direction. "Ha! Are you in such a good mood?" Seeing that the weather was getting colder by the day, he didn't expect these people to be so leisurely, soaking in the sea when they had nothing to do. "Yes, young master, this subordinate will have people come over right away and fish them all up." Not long after, this person indeed called people over and fished out all the men and women soaking in the sea onto the deck. Those people were very disheveled and looked like drowned rats. Not only were they trembling all over, but their complexions were also green and white. Fifth young master ordered people to bring blankets and distribute them to wrap around their bodies. Ling Gu muttered at the side, "Young master, you're so kind-hearted. Who knows what kind of people you're saving?" That Miss Duo quickly walked over gratefully and bowed to fifth young master amiably. "May I know this young master's esteemed name?" "We are disciples of the Forgotten River Duo clan. Many thanks to young master for lending us a helping hand. My name is Duo Shanmei. Nice to meet you." Fifth young master glanced at her indifferently and nodded. "You can contact your family and leave on your own. There's no need to inform me again." Duo Shan's beautiful smile suddenly froze on her palm-sized face. The handsome and elegant young master in front of him treated people too coldly. To be able to speak so bluntly to a great beauty like her, Duo Shanmei felt that something was wrong. She smiled awkwardly at the fifth young master. All of our spiritual senses have been sealed. His cultivation hadn't fully recovered yet. I'm afraid I'll have to trouble you for a while." "Aw. You guys are too ridiculous." Ling Gu could not help but exclaim. "Our young master saved you out of the kindness of his heart. With your attitude, I'm afraid you're going to rely on him. You can't be thinking of freeloading here, right?" Duo Shanmei's face suddenly seemed a little stiff. "Young master, it's not what you think," Duo Shanmei stuttered and explained. We. Chapter 46:60. "Alright, you don't have to explain." Ling Gu interrupted Duo Shanmei with a look of disdain. "An explanation is a cover-up. Looking at your guilty expressions, I know that you have no money in your pockets and can't afford food and lodging at all." Duo Shanmei bit her thin lips and looked pitifully in the direction of the fifth young master. However, she saw the fifth young master turn his head and look behind him. Her line of sight followed him. A few guards escorted a tall and handsome young master out of the cabin. "Fifth brother, what are you doing there?" Eldest young Master Chin looked over with a grin. When his gaze met Duo Shanmei's group, he couldn't help but be slightly taken aback. "These are..." "Eldest brother." The fifth young master hurriedly walked over and stood beside his eldest brother, whispering a few words. So many people were fished out from the sea. It felt like there was a story behind this group of people. Eldest young master was taken aback again. He looked at Duo Shanmei with a slight smile and asked gently and amiably, "Miss, there are so many of you. How did you all fall into the water together?" Duo Shanmei instantly felt that this young master in front of her seemed to be even more beautiful than the fifth young master with a cold personality and an indifferent expression. It was mainly because this smiling eldest young master in front of her had a pair of starry eyes that were too dazzling. When he gazed at her with a smile and a focused expression, Duo Shanmei always felt that his eyes would drag her into an unknown place. This immortal-like young master was simply too good-looking. Which family's young master was he? Seeing that Duo Shanmei didn't answer, the young man from the Duo clan hurriedly interjected, "Young masters, I'm truly sorry. We didn't mean to disturb you. It's really, speaking of which, we've made a fool of ourselves in front of you. It's really us Wangchuan Duo clan disciples who are too unlucky. We actually encountered such an unreasonable expressionless person. This expressionless girl attacked us without even speaking 3 sentences. She didn't reason with you at all. Right. She even sent people to throw us into the sea and seal our spirit senses and cultivation." The fifth young master and eldest young master exchanged glances. At the side, Ling Gu couldn't help but burst into laughter. "In that case, you really don't have money. Right now, your inner worlds must be completely empty. Someone must have ransacked your inner worlds." The people from the Duo clan of Wangchuan looked at each other in embarrassment. Although they did not understand how Ling Gu knew that they had been robbed, the truth was indeed so. "Young masters, I'm really sorry." Duo Shanmei came back to her senses and quickly tried to smooth things over with a smile. Although right now, we are indeed penniless." Duo Shanmei bit her lips and said with grievance, "But as long as we can contact our families, we will definitely pay for all the food and lodging expenses for these days. Please take us in for a few days." Duo Shanmei thought she would show her most beautiful smile, but unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, the originally smiling eldest young Sir Chin turned his head mercilessly and shouted at the servants, "Come, throw them all out." Everyone was speechless. "Eldest young master, you are really too willful." It was not easy for the servants to fish them out, but now they were going to throw them back down again with just a few words. Duo Shanmei and the others instantly panicked and cried out helplessly, "Why? Throw them down. Don't talk nonsense." Eldest young sir waved his hand and shouted in annoyance. Chapter 46-61. Where did all the whys and whys come from? Eldest young Sir Chin waved his hand willfully. "Why are you so talkative? Throw them away." The fifth young sir glanced at his eldest brother speechlessly. He heard his eldest brother mutter, "What if the little stoic finds out that this young sir saved the people she threw away? Wouldn't that be looking for trouble?" "Fifth young sir, eldest brother, just how cowardly are you?" "Wait!" Duo Shanmei shouted in exasperation, "Can you let me say a few words?" Duo Shanmei was both anxious and angry when she saw several servants pouncing over aggressively and twisting her arms. She shouted repeatedly, "This young sir, even if you're throwing us overboard, you should have a reason. We're from the Wangchuan Duo clan." "You are." Duo Shanmei's small face instantly contorted. Earlier, she had thought that this eldest young sir was dissolute, elegant, and even handsome. Looking at him now, his appearance was simply repulsive. She was probably blind to think that this person's aura was extraordinary. Look at what he was doing. Was this something a human could do? Duo Shanmei and company were perplexed after much thought. Why did they have to be thrown into the sea the next second after being rescued onto the ship? No, wait, no. Duo Shanmei turned to look in fifth young sir's direction. Young sir, please plead for mercy on our behalf. What kind of joke was this? Their spiritual senses and cultivation had yet to recover, so they couldn't contact the Duo clan members at all. If they were to drift on the sea for another 7 days and 8 nights, they would probably rot from the soaking. Previously, they were lucky and didn't encounter any danger after drifting for most of the night. If they were thrown into the sea again this time, what would they do if they encountered things like piranhas? Young sir. That young disciple from before appeared at eldest young Sir Qin's side at this moment and silently observed Duo Shanmei and company. Subsequently, he leaned forward and whispered into eldest young Sir Qin's ear. Eldest young Sir Qin's gaze swept over Duo Shanmei and company, and he said aloofly, "No need. We're here for a vacation, so there's no need to stir up trouble." The disciple bowed in salute. Yes. Fifth brother, let's go. Eldest young Sir Qin beckoned fifth young Sir Qin and turned to walk into the cabin. His attitude made it clear that he wanted his subordinates to kick Duo Shanmei and her party off the boat. He would not care about anything else. The fifth young master turned his head and glanced at them hesitantly. In the end, he did not say anything. Duo Shanmei and the other nobles of the Duo family had never suffered such humiliation before. They were so angry that their faces turned red and their necks bulged. They cursed and swore at the servants who were pushing them. Shouting and cursing could not change their tragic fate. With the sound of splashing water, Duo Shanmei and the others were unceremoniously thrown into the sea. When she felt the salty seawater wrap around her again, Duo Shanmei was about to go mad. "Miss, who are these people? I've never seen them in the river of forgetfulness. What should we do? How do I contact my family?" Duo Shanmei was confused by the series of questions. She rebuked angrily, "How would I know if you're asking me? This place was at least 500 nautical miles away from the river of forgetfulness. The river of forgetfulness was under the deep sea. Based on their current situation where they had neither spiritual awareness nor cultivation, it was impossible for them to return home on their own. Furthermore, Chapter 46-62. All the water-repelling pearls in their inner worlds had been plundered by the bandits. They didn't even leave them a set of clothes to change into. What those deranged bandits had done was simply intolerable. Now, apart from the clothes they were wearing, all of their valuables had been taken away, except for the clothes they were wearing. There was no food, no medicinal pills, nothing at all. It was such a miserable situation. Duo Shanmei hit the water angrily. "Be careful, there's something under the water." While they were talking, the screams of a few Duo clan disciples came from not far away. "A school of corpse fish. Is it a school of corpse fish coming?" A disciple of the Duo clan screamed in panic. "Don't talk nonsense, there's no school of corpse fish. Look carefully, don't get entangled by seaweed. You're scaring yourself. Don't you think you're unlucky enough? Do you have to blindly come up with something for me to feel at ease?" Duo Shanmei shouted angrily, her face twisted. They had drifted for an entire night and hadn't encountered any school of corpse fish. Did this mean that there wasn't much danger in these waters? "Quick, come out, quick!" The stairway talisman flashed and several people fell from the light circle in the air, rolling and crawling. Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan rushed forward to support Mu Xiaoxue, who almost fell to the ground. The two guards standing in front of the main gate of the City of Shadows were shocked when they saw this. They hurried forward and called out, "Senior Brother Zhao. Senior Brother Gu. Miss. What's wrong with you? Quick, look around and see if anyone's coming." Gu Yishuan yelled at the guard, "Hurry up, don't just stand there. Check the surroundings. If you see anyone suspicious, kill them." Zhao Yi glanced at him in disdain and mocked, "I think you're scared out of your wits. The stairway talisman can teleport you up to a distance of 2,000 miles. Junior sister used a total of 10 stairway talismans and a teleportation talisman array. Who do you think can travel 10,000 miles in a day and chase after us?" Gu Yishuan was so embarrassed that she didn't know what to say. Indeed, he was overly cautious and worried. According to normal speed, it was impossible for even someone who had attained the immortal Exalt realm to travel 5,000 kilometers in a single day. A transcendent god's divine sense could at most cover 1,000 miles. Gu Yishuan heaved a sigh of relief and turned around to glare at Zhao Yi. Although what Zhao Yi said was the truth, Gu Yishuan was not happy with his high and mighty and insufferably arrogant tone. Mu Xiaoxue was leaning against Zhao Yi's arm, gasping for breath. She sounded like she was about to cry. "Senior Brother Zhao, quick, help me to see my father. You have to save my mother. I can't let her fall into the hands of Arbor." "All right, junior sister, don't worry, I'll carry you to see master now." Zhao Yi's face was filled with tenderness as he hurriedly carried Mu Xiaoxue in his arms. However, a cold rebuke came from the main entrance. "Men, take that bitch Mu Xiaoxue down." When Mu Xiaoxue heard this harsh and cold voice, she could not help but tremble and quickly shrank into Zhao Yi's arms. Zhao Yi's heart was filled with tenderness as he hurriedly reached out to protect his little junior sister in his arms. He coldly looked at the two disciples who had fiercely rushed in front of him. "What are you doing?" Chapter 46-63. "Senior Brother Zhao, please forgive the madam's order. Sorry for the offense." The two disciples' eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. They suddenly rushed forward and released two streams of spirit energy. One landed on Zhao Yi's arm and the other landed on Mu Xiaoxue's leg. Mu Xiaoxue screamed. Gu Yishuan hurried over to help but was suddenly surrounded by a dozen disciples who rushed out of the main entrance. "Let me see who dares to help this bitch." A tall and thin woman in red walked out of the main entrance surrounded by a group of people. Her gloomy eyes were solemn and cold as she scanned the crowd. "Drag him over here." Mu Xiaoxue was forcefully dragged from Zhao Yi's arms to the ground and thrown in front of the madam. Mu Xiaoxue fell to the ground with a thud. Her hands scraped the ground and left a few bloody marks. She was in so much pain that tears welled up in her eyes and she kept gasping for breath. "Mu Xiaoxue, I forbade you to leave the City of Shadows and you went missing. If you have the ability, don't come back. Now that you've returned like a stray dog, who knows what kind of trouble you've caused in the city." "I didn't, madam." Mu Xiaoxue burst into tears. Her eyes were brimming with tears and they fell one by one. She looked very pitiful, like a pear blossom in the rain whose fragrance had faded away. Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan were heartbroken. They couldn't help but bite the bullet and said to the powerful madam, "Madam, junior sister didn't cause any trouble. Madam, junior sister is innocent. We really didn't cause any trouble on this trip. Madam, junior sister went with us to the forgetful river Snow Ridge to find the Fectus secret realm." "Ha ha ha ha," the madam mocked with a malicious expression. "Fectus secret realm? So you brought Mu Xiaoxue to some secret realm to search for treasures? You brought a cripple with no cultivation to a secret realm to search for treasures? Ha 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 ha. What a joke." Mu Xiaoxue knelt in front of the madam with a humiliated expression. She bit her thin lower lip and tears fell down one by one. She was a cripple with no cultivation, but she didn't want to do it. Who wants to be bald when they have hair? Even in her dreams, she wanted to become a cultivator who could cultivate. However, Madame Mu couldn't bear to see her acting like a little white flower. Without any explanation, she slapped her face. You're crying again. Every time I can't even say 3 sentences, you'll start crying, as if the whole world has let you down. You're no different from your bitch of a mother. She's also a slut who seduces men. Madam. Zhao Yi was so angry that the veins on his forehead were throbbing. If it wasn't for his rationality telling him that the person in front of him was his master's wife, his master's first wife, he really couldn't help but rush up and beat this woman up. What? So angry that you want to hit me? Do you want to stand up for this little bitch? Zhuo Yan sneered and went forward to grab Mu Xiaoshua's hair without any pity. Mu Xiaoshua, don't think that I can't punish you just because someone is standing up for you. Get the hell back to the detention room right now. You're not allowed to see anyone for 3 months. Mistress. Zhao Yi roared. You get the hell back too. Instead of cultivating properly, you're bewitched by this little bitch all day long. That's all you're good for. Get the hell out of here. Shui Yan shouted coldly. What now? Chapter 46-64. You've been causing chaos in the family. What do you want? A middle-aged man with a short black beard and brocade clothes walked out of the main gate. He stared coldly at Zhui Yan. I'm the one who asked Shui, and Zhao Yi to go to the River of Forgetfulness to inquire about the Tianji hidden land. Do you have a problem with my way of doing things? Master. Zhao Yi's face lit up when he saw the man. He turned around and bowed to the middle-aged man with a group of fellow disciples. Mu Xiaoxue, who was sitting on the ground in a very sorry state, raised her head and cried, Father. Mu Jinghong frowned and said coldly to the disciples, Why aren't you helping your junior sister up from the ground? Shui Yan, you'd better control yourself. Shui is also my daughter. I'm disciplining a concubine's daughter. Mu Jinghong, are you going to interfere? Shui Yan looked coldly at Mu Jinghong. You're really ridiculous. Shui Yan. Mu Jinghong glared at Shui Yan. She took a deep breath and tried to calm the anger in her heart. She turned to her crying daughter Mu Xiaoxue and said, Shui, your mother has been in a bad mood recently. Don't take it to heart. All right, help Miss back. Send her to the confinement room. Shui Yan. Mu Jinghong glared angrily at First Madam. Don't go too far. Mu Jinghong, I'm disciplining that bitch's daughter on behalf of that bitch. If I don't discipline her properly, who knows when this bitch will give you a grandson. Look at her cheap face. She's really a bitch raised by the heavens. Who is she trying to impress by acting like a crying little white flower? She's exactly the same as her bitch mother. She only knows how to use her beauty to please men. She's bewitched all her fellow disciples and they're always chasing after her like wild dogs chasing after food. Shui Yan. Mu Jinghong shouted and swept her palm in Zhui Yan's direction. Mother. A young girl quickly ran over from the crowd and supported Zhui Yan, who was retreating a few steps. Zhui Yan's face twisted slightly. She stared at Mu Jinghong and sneered. She nodded and said, Good, good. Very good. Mu Jinghong, you actually dared to attack me for the sake of this bitch's son. Mu Jinghong reacted as soon as he struck out. In fact, he had already withdrawn most of his power. However, the palm wind still swept towards Zhui Yan, who was caught off guard. Zhui Yan's shoulder was injured and blood was seeping out. She was supported by her daughter, Mu Fei Xia, and she retreated a few steps. Mu Jinghong put down her hand in embarrassment and said with an embarrassed expression, You've gone too far. Father. Mu Xiaoshui was so aggrieved that she burst into tears. She immediately knelt in front of Mu Jinghong and cried, It's Shui-er's fault. Just let Mother lock Shui-er in the confinement room. Shui-er doesn't want to make things difficult for father. For Shui-er's sake, please don't quarrel with Mother. You little slut, shut up. Zhuoyan coldly and angrily rebuked, Put away your dirty thoughts of retreating in order to advance. Who do you think you can fool with this little trick? Only a few men with broken heads would be charmed by you and lose their sense of direction. Enough. Mu Jinghong shouted at Zhuoyan with a cold expression. He turned to Mu Xiaoshui and said, Shui-er, come in with me. Yes, father. Mu Xiaoshui wiped the tears on her cheeks and got up with her head lowered. Chapter 46-65. Zhuoyan wanted to stop Mu Xiaoshui, but was pulled away by her daughter, Mu Feixia. She could only glare hatefully at Mu Xiaoshui and leave with Mu Jinghong. Why are you pulling me? Zhuoyan said angrily. Mu Feixia sighed. Mother, don't make things difficult for Mu Xiaoshui. Zhuoyan was so angry that she poked her daughter's forehead with her finger and said in a low voice, You little girl, who am I angry for? Who does that Mu Xiaoshui think she is? An outsider's plaything actually seduced your fiancé. A few days ago, the Kong family said that they wanted to break off the engagement. Don't you know why? It's that bastard from the Kong family. He secretly has something with that slut Mu Xiaoshui. Let me tell you, that Mu Xiaoshui is really a wretch. She can seduce anyone. She's the same as that slut of a mother. Mu Feixia was very open-minded. She laughed and said, Mother, this is quite good. He was a man who could be easily seduced by other women. I, your daughter, really don't like him. Besides, isn't it better to make a fuss now? If I find out the true colors of that Kong family after we get married, who will I cry to? Zhuoyan was so angry that she laughed and poked her. You're really, still in the mood to joke. Mother, don't be angry. I'm not sad. I think it's quite good. Recently, your father has been very close with that slut through letters. They use all kinds of code words. I don't know what they're secretly planning with that woman. Zhuoyan sighed and said, I'm afraid your father has been bewitched by that slut. I don't know what wrong he will do. At that time, he'll drag us three down. Mother, don't worry. I'll always pay attention to their movements. In the study. Mu Jinghong sighed and glanced at her daughter, who had her head down and tears in the corners of her eyes. Sit down. Mu Xiaoshui rubbed the corner of her clothes and nodded, trembling. Your official mother has a bad temper. You've suffered a lot these years. Father, I don't feel wronged. Mu Xiaoshui shrank her head and sat down gently. She only sat 1/3 of the chair. Her back was straight and her sitting posture was very reserved. Mu Jinghong suddenly took out a box from his arms and handed it to Mu Xiaoshui. Shui-er, take a look. Mu Xiaoshui took the box and thanked him in trepidation. She opened the lid to take a look. And her eyes to take a look. You to use this scarlet silk. You to use it. You doesn't need to infuse spiritual power. Is to use it to use it. You to use it to you to it. Thank you, father. Mu Xiaoshui's eyes flashed with joy. She knew of the scarlet. It was one of the 3 great magic treasures of the City of Shadows. It could be used as both a defensive and offensive divine artifact. The disciples of the second city lord and the third city lord were all thinking about this defensive magic weapon. He did not expect that his father would actually give this treasure to him today. Now that she thought about it, the humiliation she had suffered at the mountain gate was nothing. Mu Xiaoxue was happy in her heart, but her voice was soft and gentle. I just don't know if Madam will know about this. Why do you care about her? She's been going overboard these years. Don't worry. Take this scarlet silk and don't pay attention to others. First watch, continue at night. Chapter 46-66. Thank you, Father. Mu Xiaoxue couldn't hide her joy. She wrapped the scarlet silk around her wrist and bowed to Mu Jinghong. Father, what about my mother? We're already thinking of a way to save your mother. Don't worry too much. Your mother is an elite of the organization. The organization won't leave her alone. Mu Jinghong sighed and patted Mu Xiaoxue's shoulder. Even if the organization can't think of a way, Father won't leave your mother alone. Father will definitely save your mother and let our family reunite. Father. Mu Xiaoxue revealed a joyful and touched expression, tactfully expressing her admiration for her father at the right time. Mu Jinghong nodded with satisfaction. This daughter of his was just like Qinya. She was gentle, sensible, and able to see the big picture. Although it was indeed a great regret in life that she couldn't embark on the path of cultivation, this daughter of his was very outstanding in other aspects. She was a daughter worthy of his pride. Arbor walked into the karst cave and raised his hand to raise the illumination pearl. The originally pitch-black cave was covered by a ray of light, enveloping the thin figure huddled in the corner of the wall. Mu Qingya curled up here. She didn't know how long it had been. She only knew that there were a few people guarding the entrance of the karst cave and that there was something outside the cave that had been suppressing her. She knew very well that this suppression should be the suppression of the divine sense. She didn't know whether it was day or night in this cave, but she felt very hungry. She guessed that it should be about 14 to 14 hours. Give her the medicine. Arbor's cold voice sounded in Mu Qingya's ears. At this moment, Mu Qingya hoped that the girl in front of her had completely forgotten about her. She would rather stay in this illusory darkness day and night than for Qiao Mu to remember her existence at this moment. What are you doing? What are you doing? Let go of me, let go. Mu Qingya struggled to move her body and glanced at the young men in front of her in horror. These people were all elites of the Zhangzhou guards. How could Mu Qingya break free? One of them grabbed Mu Qingya's collar like a chick, while the other roughly pried open Mu Qingya's mouth. Mu Qingya's face was slightly distorted as she watched a soldier take out a bottle of medicine and pour the entire bottle of unknown black liquid into her mouth without any care for the fairer sex. Gulp, gulp, cough, cough, cough. Mu Qingya was forcefully restrained and forced to take 2 big gulps. She choked out most of it and her mouth was full of the bitter taste. You damned cough, 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 little demoness. Arbor stared coldly at Mu Qingya, who was cursing at him with a bright pearl in his hand. A Zhangzhou guard unceremoniously slapped her across the face. It doesn't matter. Let her scold you. Arbor said coldly, let her vent. Yes, being locked up in such a broken place. Anyone would curse if they were forced to consume such a medicinal liquid, wouldn't they? You. Mu Qingya choked and coughed violently as if she was going to cough her lungs out. Guess when the City of Shadows will come to save you. Mu Qingya pursed her lips and glared at Arbor. Take another guess. Can they save you? I have 36,000 elites on this island. Chapter 46-67. Guess how many people Tianyun is willing to sacrifice for you? My guess is that Tianyun will probably abandon you. What do you think, Hall Master Mu? You don't need to sow discord here. Mu Qingya shouted coldly. Ha! Let me tell you, Arbor, even if I die, you won't be able to oppose our entire Tianyun with your individual strength. My individual strength? Arbor looked at her in astonishment. Of course I'm not an individual. Do you think I'm that arrogant? If we still can't oppose Tianyun with the combined strength of the 3 continents, then we'll continue to gather more people and stronger forces. We'll continue to work hard. You! Mu Qingyat glared at the little stoic in front of her. Normal people only want to live normal lives and don't want to become experimental subjects. Your inhumane actions will bring about your own destruction sooner or later. Heh, you speak so righteously, Arbor. Have you ever thought that perhaps Tianyun didn't want to oppose you in the beginning? It's you. You've been blocking other people's paths, so we had no choice but to. Are you begging me for mercy? Arbor interrupted her with a sneer and looked at her mockingly. Hall Master Mu, perhaps Tianyun indeed didn't want to oppose me in the beginning. But you've been opposing me from beginning to end. Do you still remember that wandering Daoist on Seikong planet? I guess you must have forgotten. Arbor glanced sideways at Mu Qingya, who was in a sorry state with her hair sticking to her face. Madame Mu no longer had her usual elegance and nobility. Her entire body was drenched in sweat, making her appear dripping and wilting. In addition, she struggled back and forth while taking the medicine, so her hairpin was completely messed up. That Daoist Dayu obeyed your orders. He found Wen Rawan to harm my entire family. A tiny meridian pill is just a meridian pill. It's just gold and jade, a tiny bit of immediate benefit. They can be used by you as ants. How sorrowful it is. I can only watch as all of this unfolds, evolves, and ultimately leads to death. We are powerless to resist, unable to fight for our lives, and unable to save anyone. Because they're just ants. Mu Qingya was slightly surprised as she stared at Arbor in front of her. In a flash, Mu Qingya's eyes lit up as if she had grasped something. She dug her fingernails into her fingernails. Do you still remember Fan Choha? I guess you must have forgotten again. This young man is so ruthless. He's been lurking around me for so many years, and now he's finally done as you wish. Arbor paused for a moment, then walked toward Mu Qingya with the illuminating pearl in his hand. You want to cut off my wings. You want me to have nothing. You want to take one step closer to controlling my entire life. Lock me up, just like now. You had your people lock me up in a dark, bottomless hell and torment me every day to study my inner world and my mind. You are curious, aren't you? Then let me clear your doubts now. Go away. Go away. Mu Qingya felt that there was something wrong with the young lady in front of her. She only wanted to get as far away from this person as possible. She didn't want to hear anything or see anything. However, it was not up to her. Arbor lifted Mu Qingya up with one hand and dragged her into the depths of the cave. Chapter 46-68. Let go, let go, let go right now. Arbor, you lunatic, what do you want to do? Let go. Let go. Mu Qingya struggled and screamed as Arbor dragged her by the hair. When Duan Yu and Hechen entered quickly, they happened to hear Mu Qingya's piercing screams. Looking around, their gazes landed on the Zhangzhou guards who were looking at each other in dismay. Leave first, Duan Yu ordered indifferently. Yes. After the Zhangzhou guards left, the two hurriedly chased into the depths of the cave. Why are you screaming so loudly? Who do you think will come to save you in this world? Don't you think it's a waste of air for trash like you to live in this world? Arbor threw Mu Qingya against the opposite wall. Mu Qingya was flung up, and her forehead hit the stone wall hard. With a trembling hand, she touched the sticky blood on her forehead, trembling in pain and fear. You lunatic. You unreasonable lunatic. You're the lunatic. A green vine whip shot out of Arbor's hand and lashed Mu Qingya's back heavily. Ah! Mu Qingya threw herself against the stone wall again, her entire body inexplicably trembling. You schemed for so many years for that 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. You schemed against a lonely and helpless child for her entire life. You've succeeded. You've turned her into a cripple just like you. You're so awesome. She's in your hands, struggling on her deathbed without any room for resistance. She doesn't even know who you are. Why did you treat her like this? The 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl. Is it that important? Arbor lashed Mu Qingya's left leg heavily with his vine whip. In return, Mu Qingya let out an extremely painful howl and curled up like a shrimp. Arbor waved his hand, and a gorgeous light appeared behind her. As the lights and shadows flickered, the prosperous scenes of Paradise Planet, Fish Orchid Planet, Shaji Planet, Forest Planet, and the 4 auxiliary star regions flowed in the halos one after another, spreading out layer upon layer of scrolls. Did you see that? Did you see that? Arbor grabbed Mu Qingya's head, grabbed her long hair, and pushed her a few times. So what if you have an inner world? So what if you have a conscious? I have an entire star field. Star domain. The world inside is vast and boundless. It's as if it's sitting on the 3 continents. My Dantian is a vast and boundless starfield. Do you know now? That 500 cubic meters of inner world. What's worth your research? Mu Qingya's eyes widened in shock. He stared at the small world with flowing light and shadows, his eyes flashing with a crazy luster. She was going crazy. She was going completely crazy. This was Arbor's ultimate secret. Her secret was not the 10,000-year mermaid pearl, nor was it her inner world that was several hundred times larger than an ordinary person's 3 to 5 cubic meters. Instead, the entire star field belonged to her. Her Dantian was connected to the entire star field. Mu Qingya's breathing quickened. She was in so much pain and despair that she wanted to smash the ground. And at this very moment, she seemed to hear Qiao Mu's laughter next to her ear. Her crisp laughter gradually turned into an extremely arrogant laughter. Is it pain? Is it despair? Do you know what you missed? Ha 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 ha. Mu Qingya. You missed me. You missed me. Chapter 46-69. You schemed your entire life, but you didn't get anything in the end. Arbor shoved her a few more times, shaking her body. Don't you think you're the biggest joke in the world? What's wrong with you? Why don't you dare to look at me? Look at me. The 10,000-year-old shark pearl you want is here. Look at me. Arbor took out a lustrous jade-white pearl and held it in his palm, coldly gazing at Mu Qingya, whose expression was contorted in pain. Do you see it clearly? Arbor grabbed her disheveled long hair and pushed the 10,000-year-old shark pearl in front of Mu Qingya. This is the 10,000-year-old shark pearl. Do you want it? I'll give it to you. Take it, take it. Arbor pushed the 10,000-year-old shark pearl toward Mu Qingya's face. Mu Qingya's eyes throbbed with a crazed glint. She suddenly shouted angrily and pounced over like a fierce tiger, tightly gripping Arbor's hands. Qiao Mu laughed out loud, but her eyes were extremely cold as she expressionlessly looked at her like this. Is the 10,000-year-old shark pearl really useful to you? Do you think the 10,000-year-old shark pearl is some kind of miraculous 1,000-year-old elixir that you can step onto the path of cultivation after swallowing it? Idiot. Let me tell you the truth. Your body is a trash physique that's hard to come by in 1,000 years. No, you're lying, you're lying, you're lying. Mu Qingya gripped Xiao Mu's hands tightly and refused to let go. She held them tightly like this, as if she could grasp the 10,000-year-old stone inside and change her own fate. Why would I lie? I can tell with a glance that you have a trash physique. You want to condense mystic meridians? That's impossible. Others might have a glimmer of hope. Through recuperation and taking medicine, they might be able to step onto the path of cultivation in their lifetime. But you can't. Your body is a trash that's hard to come by in 1,000 years. Arbor. Mu Qingya shrieked, wanting to cover her mouth with her hands. She didn't want to listen to her speak anymore. This little stoic's words were too painful and heart-wrenching for her. Every word seemed to stab into her heart, causing her unbearable pain. Arbor abruptly raised his little hand and smashed the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl onto Mu Qingya. Is the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl useful to you? Take a look and see if it's useful to you. You idiot. Arbor kicked Mu Qingya to the corner. Mu Qingya's eyes were fixed on the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl that was rolling on the ground. She crawled over and tried to press it with her trembling hands. However, at that moment, the 10,000-year mermaid pearl suddenly flew up and landed in front of Arbor. As if it was throwing a tantrum, it smashed heavily onto her little head. Arbor stretched out his hand to block it. After being hit by it twice, he calmed down slightly. Arbor reached out and grabbed the pearl that kept jumping out and smashing its little head, then silently swallowed it. On the other side, Mu Qingya watched this scene in a trance. She sat paralyzed on the ground, unable to make a sound for a long time. Right now, she was surrounded by immense sorrow. Her mind was filled with clamorous noises that rose and fell one after another. Right, even if the 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl smashed onto your body and rolled to your front, it would fly away again. Because it simply doesn't want to choose a trash like you. It doesn't like you at all. Mu Qingya sat on the ground like this, crying and laughing at the same time. She completely lost control of her emotions. Chapter 46-70. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Duan Yut stood nearby. The two considerately did not approach, but their gazes followed Arbor closely, paying attention to his every move. They were ready to react to any sudden situation. Jojo's mood earlier was truly terrible. Although he seemed to have calmed down, from where they stood, Jojo's eyes were truly cold. Arbor coldly watched Mu Qingya, who was crying and laughing like a madwoman, without the slightest bit of sympathy in his heart. He coldly watched her for a long time before saying, "What are you crying for? What's there to be bitter about? Back then, you used Heavenly Providence's influence to trip me up. For that 10,000-year-old mermaid pearl, you sent so many people to the lower star domain to deal with my mother. You still want to deal with me after you're done. What right do you have to cry?" Arbor coldly said, "That's right. You should cry. Your fate in the future will probably be the same as mine, destined to spend the rest of your life in darkness." Mu Qingya, actually, death isn't that scary. The scariest thing is waiting for death in the darkness. I want you to bear it once. All the pain I've ever endured. That's very fair, isn't it? Mu Qingya suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and it was as if her entire mind had become clear about something. She looked up in horror and stared fixedly at Arbor in front of her, shrieking, "Why you? You're not human, you're not human. You. Her entire body was trembling violently. Just earlier, she suddenly understood something. Why was it that this Xiao Mu seemed to have the help of the gods, always doing everything before her? Why did this arbor maintain such vigilance toward her from the very first moment he saw her? She thought that she usually acted very well. Even Mu Jingfeng, who had been with her for so many years, so many Mu family members, and even such a steady and capable old patriarch did not recognize her identity. Why did this arbor determine at a glance that she was not a good person? Until just now, she had a sudden flash of inspiration and suddenly understood the ins and outs of this matter. You're not human, you're not human. Mu Qingya shrieked, her eyes finally revealing traces of surprise and fear. You're reborn. You're reborn, aren't you? You. So she would say that the most terrible thing is to wait for death in the dark. So she will say that you have turned her into a useless person like you. Yes. She understood everything. This arbor was reborn. In her previous life, Mu Qingya had successfully cut off her wings and imprisoned her in a dungeon or some other place. Therefore, all of her scheming had actually succeeded before. What was this? What on earth was this? Why did the heavens treat her like this? Since she had succeeded before, why did she have to reverse her fate in this life and treat her like this? She was unreconciled. Every time she thought of how all of her schemes had actually succeeded, Mu Qingya was so hateful that she gnashed her teeth until they bled. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal watched this scene in shock and muttered, What does she mean? Duan Yu sighed softly. It means what you think it means. He walked toward Arbor. Chapter 46-71. Jojo, Duan Yu called softly. Duan Yu called her softly with a hint of caution, as though he was afraid of waking her up from a dream. Arbor turned around and looked at him with clear eyes. Duan Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Thankfully, Jojo didn't seem to have lost control of her emotions. When he saw her tone earlier, he thought she was on the verge of a mental breakdown. He didn't expect her to adjust her emotions so quickly. Now that she was looking at him with clear eyes, it seemed like all the negative emotions from before had been settled by her in an instant. Jojo. I'm fine. Arbor shook her head at him. Don't worry, I'm fine now. Duan Yu gave a soft and walked closer to her. Then shall we go out now? His cold gaze landed on that Hall Master Mu. Duan Yu seemed to have realized something. That's right, judging from that Hall Master Mu's hysterical appearance and her words. Duan Yu astutely guessed that the reason Jojo hated this woman so much was probably because he was persecuted by this woman in his previous life. Judging from this woman's words, she really harmed Jojo in his previous life. Although nothing had happened in this life, why did it feel so frightening to listen to? Jojo. Duan Yu walked closer to her and whispered, let's deal with this uncertain factor, okay? What was the point of keeping this person alive? Keeping her to cause trouble for Jojo. Making Jojo recall those bad memories every time he saw her. There was no need to keep this kind of person alive, alright? You can't kill me, you can't kill me. You can't kill me. Mu Qingya turned around with disheveled hair. She couldn't care less about how disheveled she was right now and pounced at Arbor. Duan Yu unceremoniously kicked her back into the corner and coldly reprimanded, stay away from her. What do you know? What do you know? Mu Qingya broke down and screamed, what would a blessed girl like you know? Can you understand how difficult it is for an ordinary person to embark on the path of cultivation after trying countless methods but failing every time? Can you understand the helplessness of a person who is unwilling to be ordinary and wants to move forward bravely, only to be driven mad by reality every time and forced to return to the starting point again? You don't know anything. You don't know anything. Mu Qingya laughed sharply and sarcastically. What right do you have to criticize me? A young lady from an aristocratic family like you, who has a mountain of gold and silver in her hands and doesn't need to worry about food and clothing, what do you know? I don't even belong to this godforsaken place. I tried my best to give everything I had. In the end, you won't get anything. What do you know about the torment of having nothing? Just like the butterfly tasting pavilion, precious painting workshop, and despondent pavilion that I ran in the imperial capital for so many years, ha, ha, ha ha ha. So what if I manage it well? Isn't it because I have to return everything to you the moment you come back? Just because of that contract, just because you have the right to control their land, just because you are the crown princess of the divine province, no one can defy your wishes. All the hard work I put in will go down the drain, down the drain. If it were you, would you be willing to accept this? Would you? Chapter 46-72. Arbor's pitch-black eyes stared fixedly at her. He didn't say anything and just stared at her coldly without blinking. You're right. All these years, my entire life, it's like I've been a colossal joke. What did I get in the end? I got nothing. You deserved it, Arbor coldly interrupted her. It was you who schemed and schemed, but your scheme failed and you lost everything. If you want to resent someone, resent yourself. Ha 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 ha. Mu Qingya glared at Arbor with a frosty expression. Her eyes were bloodshot, as if she was a malicious spirit from hell. I'm a soul that came from a different time and space. I was originally living well, but the villainous heavens played a huge joke on me and reduced me to this state. Why do I have to suffer this? That person you called Ant Master before, can she travel through space? Who is she? Who exactly is she? You don't have the right to know her name. Arbor coldly rejected her certain plan and looked at her mockingly. We've already reached this point, so I advise you not to have such unrealistic thoughts. I want to go back. Go back. Mu Qingya screeched harshly, I want to see that Ant Master of yours. We're on the same path. She and I are both transmigrators. She will help me, she will definitely help me. She can send me back, she can definitely send me back. You can't go back. Arbor resolutely interrupted her unrealistic thoughts. You will die here, and it will be extremely painful. Mu Qingya collapsed to the ground at once and stared blankly at the little girl before her. This was a ruthless character. This daughter of Long Chuyun's was completely different from her mother in terms of personality. If you could still weep and beg for mercy in front of Long Chuyun, there was no need for that in front of Arbor. Jojo. Duan Yu knitted his brows and whispered, I think this person, I'm fine. Arbor turned to look at him and forced a smile. Do you think this person will affect my emotions and judgment? I won't. I won't be influenced by her anymore. Arbor tugged at his sleeve. Let's go out. Duan Yu coldly swept a glance at Mu Qingya, but he didn't say anything in the end and followed Arbor outside. Mr. Su from the small base in Beiwang Valley sent a message last time. He said that it was a kind of medicinal essence extracted from the corpse puppet's body. It might be helpful in curing the corpse poison. Perfect, there must be corpse poison accumulated in this woman's body. Let me test it out. Arbor paused and looked back at Mu Qingya coldly. Hey, doesn't she like to experiment on human bodies? I'll let her have a taste of this bitter fruit. Arbor, Arbor. Mu Qingya was still screaming. Don't go, don't go. Qiao Mu, find that spatial cultivator for me. I want to go back, I want to go back, you let me go back. Jojo. Me. Just as she reached the entrance of the karst cave, she heard a tall voice jump out at lightning speed and yell in front of her, "Jojo, I can do it, I can." Arbor expressionlessly glanced at this guy and suddenly had a feeling, did this lunatic act up again? Didn't you want to find a medicine user to test the medicine on? Chapter 46-73. Ming Yas looked at her sincerely and said, "I can do it. My body is strong and healthy, and my body is also resistant to poison. Don't worry, your drug won't kill me." When he turned around, he saw Ma Shichen and Duan Yu looking at him as if they were looking at an idiot, and he instantly felt displeased. "What's with that look?" Ming Yasi glared at them angrily. "I'm talking to Jojo right now, not you two. What right did they have to look at him with this kind of disdainful gaze?" It was simply baffling. Arbor grumpily shouted at him, "Scram." He really was a sick person. There was nothing for him to do, yet he suddenly jumped out and even recommended him to be the drug test subject. Was he sick, and quite seriously so? Did he think that zombie poison was something good? Was this kind of thing a joke? "Jojo, that woman inside only knows how to howl, and her body looks weak. She'll definitely die if you torment her for 2 days. How can it compare to my physique?" "Scram!" Arbor grumpily shouted at him. Ming Yasi instantly became indignant. "Jojo, you'd rather use that trash of a woman as an experiment than use me?" Ma Shichen and Duan Yu looked like they were struck by lightning at the same time. Both of them didn't want to speak with this idiot in front of them and turned to walk away. Arbor even ran at lightning speed while panting with rage. In the blink of an eye, he had already dashed several meters away. Big brother, big brother. Ollie couldn't resist weakly tugging at the corner of his big brother's clothes as he quietly muttered, I think that facial paralysis, it's just doesn't want you to suffer from zombie poison." After all, that experiment to detect zombie poison didn't sound like anything good. If this thing could be easily cured, then wouldn't all the people in the world who were initially infected with zombie poison be saved? However, up until now, there seemed to be no one who had a chance to wake up after being infected with zombie poison. In the end, all of them had turned into walking corpse-like tools that could only rely on their instincts to bite and chase humans. His Highness Mias's eyes lit up when he heard this. He turned around and ran in the direction of Arbor. "Jojo, speak clearly. Are you worried about my safety, so you don't want me to become a medicine man?" "I just don't want an idiot like you to waste the antidote that I worked so hard to make," Arbor snorted coldly and muttered. He quickly entered the star field and avoided the idiot who was chasing after him. Dark Yas only felt a trace of a god's domain's aura sweep over, and then it suddenly disappeared without a trace. When he got closer, Jojo was nowhere to be seen. "Arbor, how long do you think you can hide for?" Staya said angrily. He would wait here for her until she came out. Arbor restrained his aura and stealthily and carefully crept near the Phoenix Spring. She looked at her husband, who was cultivating in seclusion with his eyes closed and holy power revolving around his head. She heaved a sigh of relief and hid behind a tree, peeking her head out to look at him. She propped up her chin with her small hand and looked around, a satisfied smile appearing in her eyes. Good. Hubby had been so well behaved recently. She was very satisfied to see him cultivating in seclusion like this. Hubby only needed to stay here for 2 months, and it would be equivalent to 2 years outside. He would definitely be able to stabilize the restless holy power in his body. You're tuning in to the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.